Recording in progress.
All right, everybody ready? Ready to go? Are we missing Brad? Everybody ready? Yep. Okay. Good evening, everyone. It's 6 p.m. This is the City Council regular meeting for the City of Pacific Grove. It's Wednesday, January 15th, 2025. It's 6 p.m. and I'm calling this meeting to order. And well, I guess all council members are present tonight, all 6 of us. And I'm going to ask Councilmember Perduri to say the Pledge of Allegiance.
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Okay, now we're at approval of the agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda with this following modification, that item 13A, the agreement with Blue Strike, be heard right after the consent agenda.
Make that motion to agree to that, which you've written, Mayor. First
Thank you.
motion.
Thank you. I have a first from Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Emilio. Do I have a second?
Second.
And a second from Councilmember Rao. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, the agenda is approved, and we will hear the Blue Strike item before the vacancy item. Moving along, we're now at 2A, presentations, and I will ask Ms. Miller from the Natural History Museum to step forward and give us her presentation.
You might have met me before, but my name is Rachel Miller. I am the fairly newish executive director for the Pacific Grove Museum of Natural History. I've been there since March 4th. And as many of you know, that the museum has a city agreement. And in that agreement, it discusses the strategic plan, the mission, the vision statement, as well as the goals for the museum. And the museum is now going through what we refer to as recreditation with the American Alliance of Museums. And it is a responsibility that's also shared with the city, since the city owns our collections. And so we have revised our strategic plan. And I just wanted to briefly present the goals to you so that you are aware that the goals, although the language has changed, different language has been used since the city agreement, it's still the same goals. So I was just going to briefly go through the strategic plan and ask you if you have any questions about the goals, the current language compared to the goals that are listed in the city agreement. So one of the first goals there is referring to recreditation. That is with the American Alliance of Museums. The American Alliance of Museums is a national recreditation organization. There's only 4% of museums nationally that are accredited with this organization. It is like the gold standard of best practices for museums. So if you have this accreditation, if you have an accredited museum in your community, it's actually a really good thing for your community and for your museum. So our first goal is to prioritize the recreditation and management, and that actually goes along with strategic plan 4 and 7 that's included in the city agreement, being responsible stewards of your collection, as well as following facility and risk management of the building itself, because the property is the property of the city. Goal 2, creative interpretive master plan for meaningful engagement of diverse audiences. So this goes into us being obligated to uphold the public trust when it comes to us being accountable and serving the community, as well as performing institutional planning assessment that is in line with our operational plan. So we received a grant from the Institute for Museums of Library and Sciences to help us create a updated museum interpretive plan that will guide the museum over the next 5 years. Excuse me. Goal 3 is to amplify our community science, cultural history, and outreach within the community and within the county. And this fits right into the goal 5 in the city agreement to have interpretive educational programs. And we continue to have that as the center of our engagement and our mission for our organization. Goal 4, to elevate organizational capacity and staff development. So this goes to 1 and 3, and we are obligated to have a staff that's able to uphold the public trust and also to have a leadership, governance, and staffing structures in place to manage the museum. So we're still doing that at the museum. And our last goal there is to strengthen our financial stability and board development. And that pretty much is almost exact language from goal 6 that is in the original city agreement. The final document that you see there, that is our public facing strategic plan. This is something that you can find on our website. And so it just gives you just an overview of a summary of the transition that the museum has been in, as well as our mission and our history. Fantastic photograph of me in there. And then, of course, our strategic goals I just went over with more detail regarding what we currently do and our objectives for these specific goals.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. That's a very nice presentation. We appreciate you working on the museum and making sure that everything's planned very well, obviously very organized. We appreciate the organization, and I'll ask if there are any council members that wish to ask any questions. Councilmember Walking Stick.
Off is on, correct? All right, we're off to the races. With goals 1 through 4, what overhead impacts or increases do you anticipate for those goals, if any?
Well, we're actually increasing our staff capacity through fundraising.
Okay,
So we have been very successful with MC Gives campaign, and we've also been working with a couple of donors to create long-term contributions to the museum that would increase our staff capacity. Currently, we do not have a director of collections and exhibitions. Our curator or director left in early September. So I have pretty much taken on that position. And so we are working to raise the funding, sustainable funding, to bring back that position. A lot of as for infrastructure, we mentioned the IMLS grant that we have recently received to support the interpretive planning. We are also doing a lot of improvements within house. So you might have noticed that the museum was closed from January the 1st through the 7th. And that was our opportunity to do a refresh of the galleries. So staff and volunteers got together and we repainted all those galleries. We have moved exhibitions around to give them a new life, to give them some more room to grow and to be seen with our, engaged with our community. And we're working with a couple different donors on adding to those exhibitions. So those are some things that we're currently doing that are in place to meet those goals. They are goals over 5 years, and we have different milestones over the next 5 years of how we're going to meet and achieve these goals. And as for just this first year of our strategic plan, we've already met at least the 2 of the goals in regards to our exhibitions and refreshing and making them more engaging for our community.
my second question is, with the resources that you're outlining there, do you feel you have access to the resources you need to accomplish these goals at this point? Or are they coming along? That goes along with the question of, are we doing enough to help? But also, do you have access to the resources to get these goals accomplished?
Well, we are a small nonprofit. The
Yep.
Museum Foundation is the operational side of the museum. The city takes care of the facility. And we work really closely with Public Works. Joyce is great in helping us achieve some of the capital improvements. We have a couple that are in line for this year, but the city's assisting us with replacing the carpet, new roof. There's a couple other things that we're looking at. But as for resources, as in financial resources, we're still working toward receiving those. We are, like I said, we're working with donors. We have several large grants that we're going after, and it's going to be a process.
Okay, thank you. very
But I think
much.
that's the nature of almost any small nonprofit.
Oh, you
So,
bet. Yeah,
We appreciate it. Thank you very much for coming in and sharing with us, and we're always here to support you however you need.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it. Thank you,
Thank
City
you.
Council.
We'll go ahead and move on to item 2B. This is a mayor's proclamation for Point Pinos Lighthouse's 170th birthday. Is anyone coming up to get anything, or I'm just gonna, oh, there is, okay. All right. Do I have a walk-in mic or? Oh.
Testing, testing.
Okay, so this is our proclamation on Point Pinos. And how about everyone join me while I read this? Okay, here we go. Yeah, the whole volunteers. Okay. All right. Well, we really do appreciate the volunteers at the Lighthouse, and I know our former mayor was very heavily involved with the Lighthouse, and it's a treasure. It's a national and a California treasure and a community treasure. So thank you so much for all the work that you do. And so, whereas the Point Pinos Lighthouse's beacon has flashed nightly as a guide and warning to ships off the rocky California coast since February 1st, 1855, whereas the Point Pinos Lighthouse is the oldest continuously operating lighthouse on the west coast of the United States, whereas February 1st, 2025 will mark a remarkable 170 years, whereas today, in addition to continuing to function as an active aid to navigation, the lighthouse stands as a historic landmark, offering educational opportunities, preserving and showcasing local culture and history, and serving as a valuable resource for the community and visitors, whereas annually thousands of visitors enjoy the lighthouse and the lighthouse grounds. Whereas the lighthouse staff and countless dedicated volunteers help to make the lighthouse a wonderful place to visit and learn about local history and maritime heritage. Now, therefore, I, Nick Smith, by the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Pacific Grove, do hereby proclaim February 1st, 2025 as Point Pinos Lighthouse's Day in honor of the Lighthouse's 170th birthday. Residents are encouraged to reflect on the contributions and significance of the lighthouse and join the city in celebrating on February 1st, 2025. Who's getting this? Oh, thank you, Joyce. Appreciate you guys again. Does anyone want to say anything?
Just that we encourage everybody to attend the Lighthouse's 170th birthday. That'll be Saturday, February 1st from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then I want to shout out all of our volunteer docents that are up here with us. They dedicate countless hours throughout the year. They're the ones responsible for leading the tours. They're a great asset. And then obviously our paid employees as well, Nancy and Jen, and our 2 cashiers that work diligently throughout the year to help our patrons. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you very much. Go ahead and move on to item 3, report on closed session. I don't believe we have any closed session to report on. And we'll go ahead and take it out to staff announcements.
Mr. Mayor, one announcement to keep going, and that's about our mapping process, the city moving to districts. On January 8th, just for those who are able to make it, we had a robust workshop. We had probably 15 or 20 people that attended, and we demonstrated how to use the mapping software, and people drew their own maps. And we're in this time period now where everybody is welcome and encouraged to submit their own map ideas. So if you go onto our website and you click on District Elected Transition, there's a button on the front page. It'll take you to the web page that's documenting all of this. There you can find links to the mapping software, and you can submit your own maps. So if you wish to submit maps to be considered on our February 5th City Council meeting, then you'll need to have those submitted to, there's a link there. It takes you to submit it to the city clerk's office, to Sandra, by 1/24, so January 24th, in order to be considered for the February 5th meeting. Following that meeting, there'll be another round, so we'll make more announcements, but I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of the 24th being the deadline to submit the first round of maps.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Any further staff announcements? Okay, I'll go ahead and bring it to the council. Do we have any council announcements? Councilman McDonald.
My mic goes the right way. With Black History Month coming up in February, a local organization, BLAAC, is actually sponsoring several events, and there's going to be about one per week starting on February 1st. And two of those are actually right here in Pacific Grove at the Lighthouse Theater. So I wanted to make sure people were aware of that. On February 15th, we have Cultural Insights at the Lighthouse Cinema. And on February 21st, we have a comedy show at the Lighthouse Cinema. And so that's in addition to other programs. You can find out more information at BLAAC at their website. And I do have some flyers with QR codes should anybody be interested and want to scan those later.
Thank you very much for that. Councilmember Rao.
Okay. Couple of things. One, there are parking passes for the city-owned parking lots available. There was, I think, a little misunderstanding. They are out of the physical passes at the PD, but you can still go in and apply for a parking pass, and they'll get you the hard copy parking pass when it becomes available. The second thing is regarding spam and junk mail. And since, I'm a little new to this, and I know it's been addressed a couple of years ago, but I did want to just let the public know. I did find a couple of emails in the junk folder, and it was brought to my attention on the date, and I was able to go through and look through. But the spam filter, like a lot of things now, are AI driven. And so it picks up words, it picks up phrases, it picks up different things to help it learn whether or not it's a valid link or an address. So just a couple of things to help. Don't attach links. If you don't have, don't send an article through a paywall. Just copy and paste the article into the body of an email, and hopefully that will help it to get through the junk firewall. And then, some of the services, if you're using an outside website and you attach it to the link, it goes into quarantine. So we just want to keep that piece of it to make it clear to everybody. We want to hear from you. It's super difficult because we do get so much spam in the junk mail. You have to know what you're looking for to be able to go in there and try and find it. So anyway, if you have any questions, just let us know and we'll try and see if we can help through the process.
Thank you, Councilmember. If there are no further council announcements, we'll go ahead and take it out to general public comment. Item 4, general public comment deals with matters that are subject to the jurisdiction of the city and that the council does not have on its agenda already previously. So if there are any of those matters that anyone I'll take in chambers first. Come on up and please line up and queue up in the seats closest up here or stand in line. And we'll go ahead and take your public comment first.
Good evening, council and staff. I'm Jeannie Anton, and I'm here representing the Friends of Chautauqua Hall and also the Heritage Society of Pacific Grove. I've enjoyed getting to know each of you, and I look forward to your support in our efforts to raise money to renovate and restore Chautauqua Hall. We are currently at about 20% of our goal, and we will continue to give you timely updates. We also support the city in an effort to have Chautauqua Hall added to the National Register. Our city manager reached out to Page and Turnbull, and they have given us a proposal to do the research for the application. This will not only be another boost to the city of Pacific Grove for preserving our historic buildings, but it will also help us with our grant writing to reach our financial goal and get the work done so we can all enjoy a beautiful restored meeting place. So thank you for your continued support.
Thank you, Ms. Anton.
Good evening and Happy New Year. My name is Susan Golbeck, and I'm the head of the BBB, the Bring Back the Butterflies Public Outreach Group. And what our job is to try to reach out to the public and to businesses to see whether or not we can get the butterfly stained glass that used to hang in the Holman building for decades back to Pacific Grove. Now, the city manager has requested that we come up with a location that we would prefer when we put in the application. And almost every time I'm in town, somebody says, so when are the butterflies are going to come back to before the city council? Well, that'll be in about 2 weeks. We have managed to do a lot of the legwork that would have been done by staff, so they don't have to do it, regarding a lot of issues that were raised, and we've been able to overcome all of them. And I'm so happy to tell you that we've talked to over 250 people, and every single one of them, without doubt, without exception, has said thumbs up to this project. It's going to be awesome. And we have the overwhelming number of people and the businesses have decided that they wanted it at the museum because that's the home of the butterflies. I think someday Jewel Park is going to be called Butterfly Square, but it's going to look awesome. And when you go out of this building and you look at Trotter's Antiques and you see that beautiful stained glass window they have, well, picture that in our museum. It's going to look fabulous. And I talked to the Chamber of Commerce head the other day. She was very enthusiastic. The Clinton Hotel people are enthusiastic, and I can't wait to get it before you. So thank you very much. And I also want to say what a jewel you have in Rachel Miller at the museum. And she's just great. And I've been around here 35 years, and she's the best museum director we've ever had. She's first class. She does a great job. But thank you all for your service, and I can't wait to see how the new city council members enjoy their job. It's a lot of work. Thanks.
Thanks, Ms. Golbeck.
Thank you for your service.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm Kevin Hanley, and I'm a Pacific Grove resident. I'm here in my third annual plea to you to reduce the dangerous fuel loads at George Washington Park on the 17 acres in the middle of town, surrounded by small wooden houses and vulnerable. One cannot believe in climate change, increasing temperatures, and at the same time maintaining a tinderbox at George Washington Park. Because if you believe that temperatures will rise in the future, all it takes is high winds and a spark, either intentional or unintentional, to create a catastrophic fire in Pacific Grove. And I think any honest fire chief, and I believe that our Monterey County Fire Chief is an honest man, believes that fire departments, no matter how much resources they have at their disposal, can stop a catastrophic fire when the winds rise to a certain extent. Only an act of God. The winds decline, you get a saving rain, can allow the firefighters to actually attack and stop that fire from going. I don't think any professional believes that merely weed whacking the perimeter of George Washington Park will prevent a catastrophic fire because of the fuel loading in the middle of the park. I'd request of you that you ask the fire chief early this year to come to the city council and present all the actions that he proposes to take to prevent a catastrophic fire in 2025. We are fortunate in Pacific Grove that we don't have federal lands and state property. We can do everything ourselves. The 7 members of the city council can prevent a catastrophic fire working with fire chiefs and everyone else. So the last thing I want to say is you ran for city council to do wonderful things. I want you to succeed, but we have to put the safety, the public safety of Pacific Grove residents before you can accomplish all the great goals you want for Pacific Grove. Thank you for considering my recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Hanley. Anyone else in chambers? Mr. Secret, are you wishing to speak? Come on up, sir.
Thank you, City Council and Mayor. I know a couple of you, 3 of you, I'm sure, have visited the kitchen at Chautauqua Hall and when I've been there. And, we're on the 211 system, which is like 911, but for social services. And we get calls throughout the week, not every week, but at any hour. And we try to fulfill those, whether it be clothing or food, which we specialize in. And we just wanted to thank the community for stepping forth 8 years ago and calling me up and saying, what you're doing is important for our community and we want to help. And those words have seared into my heart ever since. And from 12 years ago when I started this, feeding 18 to 20 people, I'm not feeding 150, and I've got 20 or 30 volunteers that show up and so on. So it's all because of community. As part of that, got a check that has actually come by way of donations for $1,500 towards a rehab of Chautauqua Hall. And, we're a small organization, but this probably represents $1 a piece from the 1,500 volunteer people that we have donating throughout the year. And I just wanted to thank the community and let the folks know that we take our situation seriously, humorously, and we damn sure do our best to, when the police call us and say we need something for this guy, he's laying in the woods with no clothes, and we've stepped up several times, and we just want to keep know that's available.
I don't think we can accept that check. I will have you, maybe Ms. Anton can speak with you if that's okay. No problem. Thank you. Anyone else in chambers wishing to make a general public comment?
City Council, my name is Andy Kubica. I'm speaking as a resident, not a member of the Planning Commission. First of all, our hearts go out to the residents of Los Angeles and great appreciation to the firefighters down there for what they're doing. As I understand it, the two most important duties of a city government is to provide for the safety of the residents and provide an adequate city budget. Everything else flows from these two tasks, including protecting the environment and city infrastructure. I went to the city website today to find the current emergency operations plan. It was not there. I know the note said it was coming soon. I wrote to our acting police chief. His response was that it will be released soon. I spoke to him tonight, and there was a plan there, and it is being updated. It was pulled by his predecessor. So I assume that the police department has an emergency operations plan. I then went to the city website to our community wildfire protection plan. That website there has it there. I've seen the plan in the past. The software on that website said I have to obtain an account. So a resident cannot figure out if they haven't seen that plan until they get an account. I then tried to receive her account. What I ended up with was, gee, there seems to be a problem. Contact your administrator, or you have done something wrong. The former fire chief, Chief Panhoser, downplayed my concern several years ago when I was concerned about the He downplayed it by, we have a damp environment here. Yes, but we also have older homes with shingle roofs. We have homes that are very, very close together here in Pacific Grove. We haven't had rains for over 2 weeks, and none is forecast in the next week till January 23rd, I believe, when I heard on the news this morning. That's like 4 weeks without rain, even though we have a damp environment. We have dead vegetation and weeds near every house. According to the demographics from our city budget last year, over 25% of our population is over 65, and by definition, they are not all able-bodied. So the fire department would have quite a time fighting a fire and taking care of the people at the same time. I suggest the city do the following: have these plans updated, start a hardening process by removing brush and such as the dead branches on Lighthouse, and looking at people's property, have the fire department go around the property and say that they have to cut something or they have to remove brush, and also get the plans updated. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. I appreciate the input. Okay, is there anyone in line wishing to make a general public comment on items not appearing elsewhere on the agenda? I see one hand.
We do. We have Chris Lindstrom. You have the floor.
Any other hands?
Chris Lindstrom.
Any other?
No other hands, Mayor.
I'll give him a second
Oh,
here, but.
hello?
Okay, go ahead,
Hi
Mr.
there.
Lindstrom.
No, sorry. No, I wanted to say I support the previous speaker on the operations plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lindstrom. I appreciate that comment. Any others?
No other hands, Mayor.
Okay, we'll go ahead and close general public comment. Now we'll bring it over to the consent agenda. These are routine and non-controversial matters and may include action on resolutions, ordinances, or other public hearings. So now at this time, I'll ask any members of the council, does any member of the council wish to pull a consent agenda item? Seeing none, does any member of the public online or in the house wish to pull a consent agenda item? Okay, Mr. Tully.
I don't actually know the process. Do we just mention the agenda item, the 9D?
Okay, pulling 9D. And is there anyone else online wanting to pull an agenda item?
I see no hands raised online, Mayor.
So we'll go ahead and pull 9D. We can hear that after the vote on the consent agenda, and then followed by 13A, followed by 11A. So I'll go ahead and entertain a motion on the remaining items on the consent agenda.
Approval on the consent agenda items barring 9D.
I got a motion by Councilmember Dooley, second by Mayor Pro Tem Emilio. Any discussion on this motion? I'll take a voice vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, passes unanimously 6-0. Thank you very much, everyone, and we'll go ahead and bring it back to 9D. I'll ask Mr. Tully to come up and make his comment. My report is on the appointments to city boards and committees is on the record and been placed in the record. And I'll go ahead and leave it to Mr. Tully to make his public comment.
I appreciate it. I just would like to make a public comment on this, that I was very disappointed that Ms. Colleen Goldsmith's request to remain on the rec board was not accepted. Colleen has been on the rec board for the past 4 years. She's done an amazing job. She's been the board chair for the past year and a half. I think she's been the best chair I've ever seen in 8 years on the board. She's incredibly organized, detailed. She kept the board on task with strong leadership. In fact, her efforts were recognized by being honored as the PG Volunteer of the Year in 2024. Losing Colleen will hurt the board. Before she was on rec board, she served on other committees, such as BNRC and the golf board. She brought a wealth of historical knowledge and understanding of how other parts of the city functioned. And this will now leave our board with 3 new members, which forces a steep learning curve on us. I realize it was the mayor's prerogative
to reject her request to remain on the board. But to do this with no explanation of why and with no recognition of appreciation feels insulting. And at a time where we need citizen engagement, it sends a signal that shows a lack of respect and courtesy to the volunteers in our community. Thanks.
Anyone else wishing to comment on item 90? Okay, seeing none. Any online?
We do have one caller, Inga Lawrence Dormer.
Thank you, Sandra. Council, Colleen Goldsmith was the absolute best at the rec board. She whipped it into shape in her own way, got it functioning again, which it had been pretty dysfunctional before. And to find her not on it is very, very disheartening. For when finally something is working right. So I'm going to express my disappointment in the mayor's choice. Thank you.
Thank you. No further hands are raised, Mayor.
Okay, I'm going to close public comment on item 9D.
I'm
bring it-
sorry, one popped up. Do you want to
I'm
take
sorry?
that? We had a caller that popped up.
Okay, we're going to take that.
Lisa Tiani?
Sorry to be slow there. I really just wanted to second Inga's comments. Colleen Goldsmith was outstanding chair and member of the rec board, and it's really sad not to have her continue there with all the benefits she provided and all the work that she put in. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and close public comment, bring it back to the council for discussion and action. Motion to approve by Councilman Bluey. Do I have a second?
Second it.
And a second by Mayor Pro Tem Amelia. Discussion on the motion.
Yeah,
You want to be recognized?
yes, I would like to be
Okay.
recognized, Honorable.
Councilmember. Here.
On the issue of Colleen Goldsmith on the Recreation Board, she does seem like an able candidate, and although everyone is very qualified that's on that list and each brings their own strength, after reading the letters that have been written on behalf of Colleen Goldsmith, I am inclined to agree with Jay Tully that she is a strong chair for the commission, and she's brought a lot of strength to it. I was wanting to know if the rest of the board was open, or the rest of the city council was open to maybe replacing one of the current nominees for the recreation board with Colleen Goldsmith.
The only thing you could make a substitute motion to switch two people, although I'm personally going to stand on my appointments. I did this based on observations not only that I personally made, but also the observations of staff members, and I'm not going to get into the specifics of the interpersonal issues, but I'm standing by my list. But you're always able to make a motion, and if you get a second, we can vote on the substitute motion.
Okay, well then in the spirit of fairness, I'll go ahead and make the motion to substitute the nomination of Alexandra White with Colleen Goldsmith for the Recreation Board.
And I would perhaps suggest, I know Miss White very well. If it was anybody, I was kind of going another direction with that. So if you want to but that's your motion?
I'm putting it out there. I was trying to encourage discussion. It's a little quiet and crickets up here, so I made a motion to get things kicked out of neutral.
Okay, that's fine. Do we have a second for that motion? The substitute.
Ask the question first.
Of course.
Would it make more sense to have a substitute motion to discuss replacing and then determining who that would be to, if the goal is to start a discussion, would that be a better route to go? Would you like to stick with the specific one you made?
I take no offense to having discussion, which that was the whole idea. Yeah, so we can just move on.
I mean, if you, at this point, he's made the motion and it dies for lack of a second unless there is a second.
Well, my question. We could discuss who that replacement would be.
Okay, that's probably a smart way to go. See if there's a temperature on the council for even entertaining a replacement at all.
Okay, fair enough.
And
That
that
might
is-
be the better substitute.
Yeah, and I'll second that to open the floor for discussion on. that.
Okay, so we're going to call that a council member walking sticks motion to take the temperature on whether we would consider a replacement.
Correct.
Okay, and a second by Councilmember McDonald. That's fair. Any discussion on that? Anyone else? Get in on this? Okay. So we don't have a lot of discussion on this, so I'll go ahead and take a roll call vote on the substitute.
Thank you.
I'm not sure what you're voting on because the motion, as I heard it, is to allow for discussion rather than a specific person replacing another person.
No, the motion was to, is there a willingness on behalf of the body to discuss a replacement?
Oh, I understand.
Yeah. So go ahead and take that as a roll call. That's correct?
That's perfect.
Okay. Really go ahead and take a roll call vote, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Mayor Smith,
I'm gonna no.
Mayor Pro Tem Emilio,
No.
Councilmember McDonald,
Aye.
Councilmember Paduri,
No.
Councilmember Rao, Councilmember Walking Stick.
Yes.
Here, that substitute motion fails 2-4. Go ahead and take it back to the original motion. We'll take a roll call vote on the original motion, which is to take my appointments as stated in the record. And errata.
Thank you. Councilmember Paduri.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Emilio,
Aye.
Councilmember Walking Stick,
Aye.
Councilmember Rao, Mayor Smith,
Aye.
and Councilmember McDonald.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
We're at 6 right now, but we're gonna get there quickly here. So thank you very
Sorry,
much.
thank
everyone.
you.
Thanks for the discussion.
Yes.
All very, good points raised. Thank you very much, everyone, for chipping in on that. We'll go ahead and move to 13A, which is the Blue Strike item. And I guess I will look to Mr. First for the staff report.
And I'm going to be joined in giving this presentation by the Climate Action and Adaptation Planning Committee Chair, Councilmember Lori McDonald. So Lori, I'm happy to hand it off to you. And if there's at any point you want me to jump in, let me know.
Okay, sounds good. So yeah, we've been, actually, Sandra, if I could have the next slide, please. And this is for the item to approve the contract with Blue Strike for our climate action and adaptation planning document. So the background is that we developed, so the first recommendation for doing the climate action and adaptation plan, and from now on, I'll just call it CAAP because that's a mouthful, was recommended by the BNRC. And this follows suit of a lot of the local cities. We actually, as part of that process, did that, and I'll get to that in a bit. But in February of 2023, the council created the Climate Action and Adaptation Planning Committee with the objective to develop the CAP in line with Council Policy 3A, which is shown here, and that is environmental stewardship. The policy value statement is that Pacific Grove implements environmentally sustainable practices that protect wildlife and the coastal community. And A within that is initiate and complete a climate action and adaptation plan. So the goal of this is to meet that council policy. Next slide, please. And so the climate committee was put together and composed of council members and BNRC commissioners that originally started with 3 council members and 3 commissioners. We met regularly, basically quarterly, to review relevant city and regional documents. We actually received presentations from other cities that have done theirs. They gave us some of their best practices, things they wish they'd have done differently. All these things informed what would be our best steps going forward. And one of the things that became clear is that we really needed to engage outside counsel because none of us obviously are climate action experts. So it made sense to go out to somebody who has that expertise, who could help us to do the right project for Pacific Grove, and therefore being able to make actionable recommendations to council. And I wanted to let everyone know that the documents for climate action, there is a website. Mr. First has done a great job of putting together all of the resources that we've looked out throughout the process, and all of that is available for you on the website at cityofpacificgrove.org/climate. Next slide, please. Oh, thank you. So as far as selecting a consultant, the Climate Committee actually played a very active role, both in many things, creating the RFP. All of the committee members, as well as several members of staff, scored them independently. And that went into a formula where we looked at the top choices. We all evaluated them, and a core group of us also were present during the interviews, so that it wasn't just staff hiring, it was the committee as well, so that we could ask questions that really address the concerns of the community. 3 firms responded to the RFP, and the top 2 were invited for interviews, and Blue Strike Environmental was selected as the top firm. Next slide, please. And there were a lot of reasons that we selected Blue Strike in particular, so I wanted to lay those out. It was very clear early on that Blue Strike really had an expertise above what most of the other agencies we've seen could provide to our community. They focus not only on reducing the greenhouse gas emissions and carbon neutrality, but also promoting sustainable development, resilience, adaptation, and equity among communities affected by climate change. They have a very high level of expertise. And another really important benefit is they're a local company, so they have local knowledge, they have a vested interest in our community. And they have worked with a lot of our local communities. They've worked with AMBAG, they've worked with Carmel, Monterey, Pebble Beach, and others. So they have a really good working knowledge of the challenges we as a coastal community face. And so we feel really fortunate to have the opportunity to bring their expertise to bear on our CAAP. Another important thing is that they tie that into funding sources. So while we do have a budget for hiring them, part of their plan is also to look for funding for us. And so that can potentially offset some of the costs as well, both for the planning process, but also for the actions that we'll take going forward. And the thing that really stood out is they have a very robust community outreach effort. Their goal is to develop a plan that reflects community needs. And I think that's really important. You always want to do a need assessment to find out what the community needs and what they have an appetite for, because it's really important for anything to be effective to have buy-in by the community. And that is one of their key goals. And so in doing so, their goal is to create crowd-pleasing strategies through robust community involvement. And that, I think, is something very important so that we as a city can really own the end product and really have a return on investment for the efforts that are put into this. Next slide, please. And so the scope of work will be for them to equip the city of Pacific Grove with actionable strategies to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and build resilience to climate change, which, as we know, as a coastal community, we will have a lot of challenges to face. And the goal is to have them help us with these efforts. They will engage the community throughout the process. They will prioritize actions with cost and impact evaluations, so we can really make sure we're taking the actions that get the most benefit and they're most cost effective for us. And they'll deliver a draft and final climate adaptation plan to us for adoption. We had an original budget allocated of $100,000, and their revised budget came in at $99,515, with the understanding that, again, there could be some potential opportunities to offset that with potential grant funding that might be available. And so the recommendation for the council this evening is to approve the agreement with Blue Strike Environmental. And this will enable us to complete the CAAP within 12 months and address critical climate challenges for Pacific Grove. I'm happy to answer any questions, as I'm sure George is as well.
Thank you so much for the presentation and all the work on the subcommittee and working together with our commissions. Yes, Mr. First.
Mayor Smith, if I could just take a moment to thank all the BNRC members that contributed to this effort, throughout this, and also the council members that were on the committee. And I think we all went into this not knowing what we didn't know, but not even knowing what we, and learned along the way. And throughout the 2 years or so that we've been doing this, really have developed this project to where it is now. So thank you to everyone that contributed to that.
Thanks so much for your help on it. I will go ahead and go out to the public. Anyone in the chambers tonight wishing to speak on the item? We'll take chambers first. Ms. Jensen, come on up.
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Brennan Jensen. I am the Director of Engagement and Resilience for Blue Strike Environmental. And I want to really thank the council and in particular Lori McDonald for your efforts as the chair of the committee. Also, I want to appreciate staff member George, who is leading this effort and also working on lots of sustainability measures within the community. This is a really special moment for Blue Strike. We are a local firm doing climate solutions within this community. We were established in 2007. Right here, basically at Good Old Days. And the story is that our CEO was working for the chamber at that point, helping to put on Good Old Days, and it fell on Earth Day one year. And so she organized a campaign in which Pebble Beach Company donated trees, many of which are planted here in this local community as folks took some of the first climate pledges. And now the city is taking this to the next step. We're honored to be an organization that's dedicated to climate solutions with deep technical expertise, and also to be able to apply that knowledge and expertise here in our hometown with the very first climate action and adaptation plan. So thank you for the recommendation. We're honored to be considered.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jensen. Appreciate it. Anybody else wishing to speak? Anyone online wishing to speak?
Yes, Mary, have a couple of hands raised.
All right, we'll take
Patty Reese.
Hi, and thank you for taking up this issue of climate action. I would just like to make one suggestion is that your mission is stated as to protect the wildlife and the environment. And I would just like to have the word inserted to protect the citizens of Pacific Grove, comma, wildlife and the environment, because the number one duty of public service is protecting the citizens of your community. I do think it's a wonderful opportunity to reduce the fire fuels that threaten our community, just as they threaten every other California community. And I would love to see at least $100,000, such as what you're spending on this contract, go to immediate action to reduce the fire fuels that currently are threatening our city. Thank you so much for considering this critical public safety moment with alacrity.
Thank you very much.
Lisa Chiani.
Thank you. Excuse me. I just wanted to say that it's been great attending the meetings, listening to the discussions, listening to the speakers that the committee brought in, that George first brought in, and so great to remember back to when council approved this, and how far this has come in a very careful process. It's just been a great process to watch, and clearly Blue Strike was the right consultant to pick, and I'm looking forward to the results of this plan. Thank you.
Chris Lindstrom.
Good evening, council. As a 34-year resident of Pacific Grove and an environmental consultant for 40 years, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
This is the first I've heard of this, and I really welcome the opportunity to reach out with the consultant and partake some of the knowledge that I've gained over the years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
No further hands are raised, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I'll go ahead and bring it back to the council for discussion and action on the item. Councilmember Paduri.
To the current and past council members, current and past commissioners, current and past staff members, and a special thanks to Mr. First here, because like he mentioned, we've gone through ups and downs, I would say, in some sense, but we finally landed in the right spot. I'm really glad that a local company is here making this work. So no pressure on you, but all eyes will be on you. And I would also, I'm really excited that we're actually starting 2025 on the right foot here by examining what the city needs most and looking at it really at an overarching standpoint to see how we need to make things better for climate-wise or anything else. But ultimately, it is the quality of life for the citizens that we're going to help here. So thank you very much.
Councilmember Amelia, Mayor Pro Tem Amelia.
Okay. Thank you very much, Lori, for all your work. And George, also thank you for all your work. And along with the committees, I agree with you. We've been working on this plan for several years now, and it's finally come to a fruitful end. And I'm ready to make a motion, Mayor.
That's fine.
Okay.
Anytime.
I'll make a motion.
And
To-
go ahead.
Okay. I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the climate action adaptation plan, authorize the city to enter agreement with the Blue Strike Environmental for Climate Action and Adaptation Planning Services for an amount of 99,515.
And I'll second.
All right, great. We have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Emilio and a second by Councilmember McDonald as to recommendation 1 on the agenda. And any further discussion on the item? Councilmember McDonald?
Thank you. I just wanted to say one other thing for anybody who hasn't been following this, because it has been a long process. We really did take our time to get to understand what the issues are, understand a bit of what our needs were. And so we're very happy that we were able to find a local company with a vested interest who has really the skills to do this. But I also wanted to let the public know that they will actually provide us with sort of a dashboard that we can use going forward. So this is not something that will sit on the shelf. This is something that we can use in real time. Staff can utilize, the community can utilize. So I think that this is really a great product that will come out of it. And I'm really happy we're moving around along with this, and so glad for the input we've had along the way. And thank you, George First, for doing such a great job of organizing us and bringing together all the resources we needed to really bring this to fruition.
Thank you very much, Councilman McDonald, again from the work. And before we take the voice vote, I just wanted to say that I'm very pleased to see a local company get this work. I think it's great that we're engaging other members of the community to help us, and this is the place where we live and work. So it's a wonderful thing. And also that we've engaged our commissions to assist us with our policy making, and we made that all happen. And it takes a little while, but I think we got it right. So with that, I'll go ahead and take a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing no opposition, passes 6-0. Thank you very much, Blue Strike, and thank you, staff and the boards, commissions, and the council. We'll go ahead now and move on to the vacancy item. Let's see.
Did you want me to start on that one, Mayor?
Yes, sir. Why don't you go ahead and give it a shot?
We have the slides, Madam Clerk. All right, we can leave it at that for just a moment. This is an item with regards to the selection of an appointment to fill the city council vacancy and the administration of the oath to the selected applicant. As the council, and I think the public is aware, that Councilmember Debbie Beck resigned from the city council effective at the end of the regular meeting held on November 20th of 2024. The process for replacing Ms. Beck is set forth in the city charter, Article 12, which states that it'll be filled by an appointment if the appointment is more than 30 days after the vacancy, then the mayor is empowered to make that appointment. However, Mayor Smith has indicated that he is seeking council direction with respect to that appointment and would only appoint if the council is unable to have a majority vote in favor of a particular candidate. So the city has received 8 applications for the position. They're all listed in the agenda, and there's going to be a slide that provides their names in a moment. There was one of the candidates, Jennifer Kelly, who has withdrawn her name. So there are 7 candidates remaining. And what I'm going to do now is go through just a few slides on what the process is that the council will be following tonight. And this information that you see here was all contained in the agenda report. So if we could get started with the next slide, please. All right, so the steps that will apply to this process are shown on this agenda. The first 5 steps, there's 10 total. The first step is that the agenda report was posted on January 9th of 2025 for this meeting with the names of the applicants for the position. The second step is that the city council may ask questions of the city attorney about the process. Third, that each applicant will be called upon by the mayor in alphabetical order by last name, and each applicant may make a statement to the city council for up to 5 minutes. Step 4 is that the council may ask questions of the applicant after the statement by that applicant. And step 5 is after all applicants have made their statements, the mayor will be asking for public comment. So those are the first 5 steps. If we go to the next slide, please. All right, these are the remaining steps. Step 6 is that after public comment, the city council will discuss and then there will be a nomination made by a council member of an applicant. Step 7 would be that if there is a second for that nomination, then the city council will vote on that nomination. Step 8, if a majority of the council, which we have 6 council members, so majority is 4, vote in favor of the nomination, then that applicant will be appointed by the mayor to the city council position, and the city clerk will administer the oath of office, and the newly elected council member will be invited to take a seat at the dais. Step 9, the nomination and voting process will be followed until an applicant has received a majority vote of the council. And then step 10, and this reflects my comments earlier about what happens if the council is not able to agree. So step 10 is if for any reason a majority of the council is unable to agree upon an applicant for appointment to the position, then the mayor shall make the appointment. Next step, next slide, please. Here you have the list of the applicants who applied. The deadline to apply was January 3 at 5 p.m. And as I mentioned, the 6th applicant, Jennifer Kelly, has withdrawn. So that leaves 7. The mayor will be calling upon the applicants in the order you see here. I believe there's another slide. All right, this is the question. So if you have questions of me at this point, I'll be glad to respond. And then, as I mentioned before, the mayor will be calling upon the applicants. So I'm available for questions.
Okay, at this time, council members, if you have any questions, please direct them to the city attorney. We are on step 3. We're going to follow this closely of the process. So does anyone up here at this time have questions of the city attorney about the process? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and call up our first city council vacancy applicant, and this is done in alphabetical order. And this will be Anna Bornstein. Ms. Bornstein, please join us up here. You may speak for up to 5 minutes, so we'll just set the timer at 5 minutes. You don't have to use all 5 minutes, but if you decide to, we're going to be here to listen. And you can discuss your qualifications and interests in the position as stated in the agenda report. Thank you very much. And let's set her timer to set her timer to 5 minutes, and then we'll tell her when she can start. Yes. We're good? Okay. Okay, go ahead. Thank you, Ann.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Anna Bornstein. I'm a resident of Pacific Grove, and I currently serve as the chair of the Architecture Review Board. So a little background on me. I was born and raised in Bellingham, Washington, and I moved here about 4 years ago. But I did have a great uncle who lived here, and one of my more treasured mementos is a postcard my grandmother wrote in 1950, boasting about her summer job where she earned $200 a month. I have 3 sons. My oldest son serves in the Coast Guard, and my younger 2 are in high school. So professionally, I work as a land use planner at EMC Planning Group. And in this role, I manage and contribute to a variety of complex projects, working on coastal planning, environmental planning, housing elements, designing objective design guidelines, affordable housing, and I'm able to really keep informed on new housing and land use laws that are relevant to our city, including builder's remedy. So my professional planning experience and really my love for Pacific Grove is what motivated me to apply. And as you know, during the next 2 years, the city will face a lot of challenging planning issues. We'll be finalizing and certifying our housing element, implementing the zoning amendments, creating objective design guidelines, and climate action adaptation plan. And I see building relationships as a key trait to facilitate these tasks. I work very well with staff, neighboring jurisdictions, agencies, community stakeholders. So if selected, I would represent the city well as we collaborate with our partner agencies. We live in an incredible place, so I strongly support maintaining and enhancing our infrastructure, building affordable housing, protecting our natural resources, and enhancing our business districts. It's really great to see all the new establishments that have been popping up and bringing entertainment options and services to our city center. I also bring budget management experience from my role as treasurer on the board of directors at Church in the Forest in Pebble Beach. And there's a lot of talent and experience in the group of candidates, but I believe my professional experience in city government, and interests complement yours. And I'm eager to support the city in a higher capacity. So thank you for your time and consideration, and I welcome any questions.
Thank you very much. And I'll now, this will be the time for the council to ask any questions of Ms. Bornstein as she is here before us at the podium. So would anyone like to ask her any questions? Councilmember Rao.
Thank you. Hi. So going to the housing element, we have a state mandate of 1,125 dwellings. Do you think that's achievable? And what are some ideas to make that happen?
It's a lofty number, that's for sure. I think it's achievable, and ideas to make that happen. A couple strategies. Well, one, let's back up. I think what might happen first, the public-owned lots that are on the sites, I think it's 8 and 9, and some of the lots downtown. Those are slated to have affordable units on them, and they will be part of the Surplus Lands Act. So by the end of the year, the city is going to have to make moves and RFP those lands and encourage affordable housing to be developed. So I would focus there first on the public lands, what we have control over, but then also encourage building of ADUs, maybe even legalizing, ADUs that have been built in the past. And then we're partnering with nonprofit affordable housing developers. I've worked with some of them in larger projects in Northern Bay area. They have the resources and the relationships to carry the cash and develop the projects.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to ask Ms. Bornstein a question? Councilmember Bernard.
Just ask a quick question. as you may know, there's a initiative to have a roundabout in town. What is your opinion on that?
Great question. Honestly, I'm pro roundabout for a couple reasons. I know it's a great way to move traffic. I have heard the concerns. It's near a school. I lived in Modesto before, and they actually installed 2 roundabouts near the high school. They worked very well. The one thing I might consider after watching the modeling is considering where the placement of the crosswalks. I think we really would want to circumvent the roundabout as the main crosswalk thoroughfare. So really just kind of reimagining that whole corridor. But I do support the roundabout.
Any further questions? Councilmember Emilio, Mayor Pro Tem Emilio.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to back off of Council Member Raw's thing about the housing, we're still under restrictions on water.
Yes.
Ideas about water. How do we obtain that?
Well, rumor is that water is coming. It does sound pretty serious from all the presentations I've heard from Dave Stolt, that really by, October of this year, it's getting pretty serious, the allocations, and it sounds like we're on the cusp of actually having adequate water. So I'm hopeful and optimist that will happen, and then we'll be able to accommodate housing with more water.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bornstein. And at this time, we'll go ahead and take the next applicant. Thank you. That applicant is Mr. Davison, Ross Davison. I believe Mr. Davison is going to be joining us on Zoom.
Yes, he is right here. I'm going to promote him over. And when you're ready, Mr. Davison, I will start the clock.
Great. Well, thank you all for inviting me to speak tonight and allowing me to join virtually. I'm disappointed to not be there in person, but as I'm on the tail end of the flu, I thought it was better for everybody if I attend remotely. So with tea in hand, I am ready to go. First, congratulations on assembling such an impressive applicant pool. From the candidates I know personally, like Don Murphy, to those whose resumes I've only reviewed, I'm confident that any one of us would make an excellent addition to the City Council. I think like everyone who applied, I love PG, and I'm excited to contribute to fostering its growth and sustainability. Few places offer the same combination of accessibility, stunning natural beauty, and strong community values. And in my view, Pacific Grove's two most unique characteristics are its historic and its natural resources. Our historic buildings provide the heart of our walkable, charming city, while our coastline is core to our rest, enjoyment, and recreation. And my background positions me well to support staff in preserving these defining features while fostering more inclusive and community-centered future. Historic buildings have been central to both my personal and professional life. I spent the first decade of my career in heritage preservation, working on projects across 25 countries with organizations like UNESCO, the National Park Service, the UN, and USAID. My work ranged from conducting structural assessments of ancient temples in Myanmar following damage from earthquakes, to training teams in Syria to document sites that were threatened by ISIS. These experiences earned me recognition as a National Geographic Explorer, where I focus not only on protecting historic sites, but engaging with local communities to ensure their preservation remain integral to local identity. I have a deep understanding of what it takes to maintain historic structures, and I'm eager to apply that expertise here in Pacific Grove. Pacific Grove's other defining feature is its breathtaking coastline, the beaches, the tide pools, the underwater canyons that we all love. This natural beauty has attracted renowned institutions like Hopkins Marine Station and Monterey Bay Aquarium, which is pretty remarkable for a town for less than 15 people. Like our historic resources, our natural resources deserve protection and thoughtful management. After my career in heritage preservation, I co-founded a startup developing tools for environmental managers and earned a master's degree from Coastal Science and Policy from UC Santa Cruz. My work involves creating mapping tools to help managers assess, monitor, and protect ecosystems, giving me hands-on experience with restoration, mitigation, and coastal resiliency projects. I would be thrilled to support Pacific Grove's efforts to balance coastal access for recreation with protections for these fragile ecosystems as we start to redefine our general plan. As a current planning commissioner, I was fortunate to participate in major city initiatives like the recent housing element update, where we identified areas for additional housing development. As the only renter on the commission, I've been able to represent the 44% of Pacific Grove residents who rent, ensuring their perspectives are included in these critical discussions. The roles give me valuable insight into both the city's processes and priorities. Additionally, my experience as CEO of Understory has honed the skills essential for a city council member, managing fixed budgets, overseeing complex projects with public-private partnerships, creating long-term roadmaps, and coordinating with stakeholders to achieve clear outcomes. And beyond my professional qualifications, I just love living in PG, and I'm actively setting down roots here. I spend every morning at Lovers Point swimming with a vibrant group that dips, swims, and communes in the cold morning waters. I thoroughly enjoy the walkability and bikeability of our town. I treasure the fact that I can walk 5 minutes down to Grove Market for my groceries. And I love our local network of friends and our broader community in general. My fiance and I hope to raise our future children here, giving them a chance to enjoy everything we love about this incredible town. Pacific Grove is already a remarkable place, but I believe we can make it even more inclusive, accessible, and community focused. And I'd be honored to help steward the city, preserving what makes it so special while fostering growth for generations to come. And I just want to thank you again for letting us speak tonight, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much, Mr. Davison, and we do appreciate you staying home. That you're not feeling too well. Thank you. I'm going to now take it out to the council members for any additional questions that they would like to ask Mr. Davison. Mayor Pro Tem Emilio.
Thank you, Mr. Davison, for staying home. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Good. Are you, you've talked about a lot of land use and environmental stuff, and appreciate your service on the commission, planning commission. Do you believe in a skate park in Pacific Grove? Yes or no?
Yeah, no, I definitely do. I think we have a really great community. I thought the community support behind the skate park was incredible. And the fact that, we have sites that are available and have access, and I think a pretty hungry amount of kids who want a skate park. Yeah, I'm fully behind it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilmember Rao.
Thank you. How will you address climate change when it comes to, or climate action when it comes to promoting environmental sustainability and expanding ecotourism in our community?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the most resilient things you can do is have nature-based solutions. There's coastal armoring that kind of takes the form of creating concrete walls or riprap. But at the same time, you can do secondary effects with, natural ecosystems. So you can do seeding for seaweed. You can do, oyster shell planting and effectively remove some of the impacting effects of climate change. So sea level rise, storm surge, things that we've, to be honest, been getting battered by the last few years through natural measures. There's lots of really exciting research that's being done in the Netherlands right now. I mean, they're a country that, kind of is do or die at this point because of their proximity to the sea and their low elevation. And they're coming up with really innovative ways of mitigating, some of these larger issues without damaging ecosystems in the process. So I'm really optimistic that we'll be able to find solutions when we need them.
Thank you. Councilmember Pedoli.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Davison, for being here in Zoom, if not in person. I just wanted to know from your standpoint, being on the commission and now for the council, how would you approach a situation where there are conflicting viewpoints on the same topic?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, to be honest, I think that's every topic. It's always going to be some amount of compromise. I think if you have community engagement and rather than having community buy-in, you do, co-building. So people feel like they actually have a hand on the process. People are much more likely to, even if it's not necessarily their ideal outcome, walk away feeling satisfied with where we landed. So I think, making sure that folks within the town understand what's happening, know what's coming down the pipeline, feel like they've had a chance to have their say is really important in at least finding that middle ground as we move forward.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, the Councilmember Walking Stick has a question.
Hey there. During the election, I don't think any of us got away with not addressing the roundabout and affordable housing. That was the number one public. So I just wanted to get your stance on, or your viewpoint, I should say, on both of those.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So for the roundabout, I lived on Congress up until about 6 months ago, and about 4 blocks away from that intersection. And as someone who cycles quite a bit, it is a harrowing intersection. I think, we all know that. And so I'm pro roundabout. I think that, they really do function well. It's not something that's, something that we'd be testing out. It's more that we're putting practices in place that, globally have been tested at this point for decades. So I'm definitely pro roundabout. I really liked what Ms. Bornstein was talking about changing the entire corridor. I think that's a great idea. It's currently happening on Pine, and I think we're still getting through some of those things where shifting sidewalks and access points can be difficult. But I think it's a really good idea. And the second one for affordable housing. Yeah, affordable housing is a big problem. I mean, we are genuinely, globally and domestically in a housing crisis. I think there's some really interesting creative solutions. Again, like Ms. Bornstein said, you have nonprofits who can work with municipalities to do things like non-market housing. We do have access to a good number of spaces owned by the city to kind of try and take that on. Like Councilmember Emilio said, water has been an issue, but it's one of those things that does seem to be changing. If you're looking at like the new desal plant and some of the other regulatory changes that are going through at the state level. So I'm actually fairly optimistic both about housing and about low income housing. The ADUs themselves seem to have kind of been a self-fulfilling prophecy as far as how much it's been able to backfill for low income housing. If you look at the actual numbers of what is being constructed, they are really kind of bearing the brunt of it. But I do think if we took an active stance and really tried to fill out some of the numbers that we put through for the housing element, we could make a really good dent in that in the amount that we're looking for.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Davidson. We appreciate you coming on tonight. And at this time, we're going to go to our next applicant and ask Mr. Melvin Dubee to step forward.
Great. Thank you so much.
Mayor Smith, members of the council, thank you for this opportunity. You have my resume and my statement of qualifications, so rather than rehash my professional background, I will explain how I came to Pacific Grove and what motivated me to apply for the vacant council position. I was retired and perfectly happy living in Washington, D.C. area where I had spent the previous 34 years, when in 2019, my wife was offered and accepted the position of rector at St. Mary's by the Sea Episcopal Church here in Pacific Grove. She had always been supportive of my career, so it was my turn to return the favor. I'd been to this area a few times for business and once on a family vacation, so I knew how beautiful it was, and it did not take much convincing to get me to move here. What I did not know, however, was what an incredible sense of community I would find here in Pacific Grove. Arriving in late 2019, we immediately found several favorite restaurants to haunt and began availing ourselves of the many outdoor activities Peninsula offers. Unfortunately, within a couple of months of our arrival, COVID hit and our integration into the community was delayed. We did our best throughout that time to support local businesses, a lot of takeout, and to try and get to know people. But I have to tell you, it was a tough time to be in a new place. As the pandemic finally subsided, we became more and more integrated into life on the peninsula, to the point where I chuckle now at how I had pined to return to the big city. So why apply for the city council? I think sometimes our spouses know us better than we know ourselves, and my wife had the best insight on this question. As she described it, I have a passion for service. Is what led me to give up a promising job in finance to go back to school and switch careers to public service. Is why, although I no longer run, I jumped at the chance to serve on the Big Sur Marathon Events Committee. It's why when I found the amazing group of people that make up the Velo Club Monterey, I felt compelled to join the board of directors. Pacific Grove is now my home, and I want to give back to this community, and I think I have something to offer. I understand this is not a perfect place. Our community struggles to provide affordable housing to its residents. There's often tension between the understandable desire to maintain the hometown feel and the need to encourage business and growth. The water situation presents unusual challenges most places don't face. We have infrastructure issues that need addressing and limited resources with which to address them. We live in a place with remarkable natural beauty that attracts lots of visitors. While we want to be good hosts, there can be friction between creating a welcoming environment for tourists and preserving our community identity for residents. None of this is a surprise to you. These are issues the city has dealt with for a long time, and they won't go away anytime soon. I would love the opportunity to bring a fresh perspective as the city continues to move forward. Now, let me take a couple minutes and speak more as a resident and a candidate and describe what I hope the council will do regarding this vacancy. Above all, I hope the council chooses someone with common sense. I want someone on the council that understands that issues are complex, tough problems rarely have easy solutions, and no one has all the right answers. I hope you select someone that takes a broad view of the challenges facing the city, not someone who comes to pursue a narrow agenda. The person you pick should be willing to listen to all sides and not be afraid to alter their stance if the facts dictate it. You guys know better than I do, but the person had better have a thick skin. Be prepared for some seemingly unwarranted criticism. They need to understand that you cannot make everyone happy, and sometimes even doing the right thing can make you enemies. I think I have those characteristics, but if you don't choose me, I hope you find someone else who does. Thank you for your time, and of course, I'm happy to answer your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Dubey. We'll go to questions, council questions. Who would like to? I've got a short list here that I've been developing based on your questions, but I'll let you guys ask them.
Start us off.
Why don't we start off with Mr. Dubey, could you tell us your position on increasing affordable housing in the community?
Yeah, I wish I had the answer to affordable housing here and around the country, but I think like Ms. Bornstein started with the idea that there are places here in the city that the city government owns, and we can use those. As Mayor Pro Tem Emilio pointed out, we've got water issues, so assuming we've got some more water coming down the pike, that would be helpful. I think that we need to look at public-private partnerships and make sure that when we have developers coming into the city, that we work with them to include affordable housing in anything that they're doing in the city.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions? Councilmember Pateri?
I really want the roundabout question.
It's coming.
Okay.
Somebody else asked that. So outside of housing and water, which is kind of prevalent everywhere, what do you think are the most let's say top three pressing issues for the city?
Well, I touched on some of them when I was outlining when I said the city is not perfect. I think there is a tension here between the desire to maintain this real hometown kind of a feeling and to do things where we can encourage businesses to come in and help us with our revenue stream and provide services to the community. So that's, I think, would be one of the top two things along with affordable housing.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and ask you how you feel about the roundabout.
Okay. As the president of the local bike club, I've actually done some research on roundabouts and read a few studies. Most of them are from Europe. And you can, in fact, build roundabouts that are safer, not just for vehicular traffic, but also for pedestrians and cyclists. It depends on how they're designed, but I'm a huge fan of roundabouts. With that said, I know that there are financial issues associated with this particular project and would love the opportunity to get in and see what we might be giving up if we spend the money on a roundabout as opposed to what other projects we might be able to use that for. And it really depends on how a roundabout is designed. There's currently one proposed for the intersection of Laurellis Grade and Carmel Valley Road. We saw the presentation, our bike club saw the presentation on that a couple of days ago, and they've designed it so that they're going to actually make it more dangerous for cyclists. So it really depends on how it's designed, is what it does for safety. But I am a big fan of roundabouts.
And then one more.
Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem. Oh, you got one more?
Ask
Go ahead.
about, what do you believe is the most critical infrastructure issue to address right now? And how will you personally make a difference in creating forward progress on this issue?
I guess I would have to say that it's access to water, and I don't know enough about what's coming down the line to say what we need to do to make sure that gets solved.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Lilly.
Thank you. Cannabis is coming to Pacific Grove. Are you for it or against it?
Well, I don't know if you looked closely at my resume. I spent time at the Office of National Drug Control Policy. So I am generally not in favor of cannabis use, but I know that the people of Pacific Grove have spoken on what they think should happen in the town. And so I think that we should follow the lead of the voters.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. DB. That will conclude your presentation for the night, and thanks so much for your application. And we'll go ahead and move on to our number 4 applicant. In order here, Cynthia Garfield.
Can you switch me to 5?
It's showing on here.
It's 3. I'm looking at 3 on this clock.
Yeah.
Forget
Bunk.
the clock.
Yeah.
Yeah. Screen clock.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Mayor Smith, council members, really appreciate your time tonight. Before I tell you a little bit more about myself, I want to call attention to the enormous swell of skill and expertise we've seen coming forth with both applicants for this vacancy, as well as the boards and commissions. We're pretty lucky, and I just wanted to call that out for a moment. So the experience that I would bring to this vacancy comes in part from my work as a previous council member. Other relevant experience that I want to cover includes my work with nonprofits, and I wanted to highlight some of that experience and look at its applicability for this council position. As the president of the Pacific Grove Library Foundation, I worked with the Friends of the Library, city staff, and a host of lawyers to create a model and legal agreements on how private funding can be used to restore city asset. In that case, it was the Carnegie Library. I went on to serve on council during the actual renovation as well, so I was able to support the project from the beginning to the end. Prior to my council term, I served on the board of the Point Lobos Foundation at a time when the foundation was working on redefining the role of the board as it evolved and dealing with the challenges of over-tourism that are still being addressed at Point Lobos, but also have applicability for Pacific Grove at times. As an aquarium guide, I interact with visitors all the time to share the wonders of our marine environment. The extensive training that the aquarium gives its guides also prepared me to discuss the implications of climate change. And that is a challenge that is facing Pacific Grove both today and will be increasingly an issue going forward. After leaving council, I became more involved in growing the Friends of Perkins Park. Working as a team, this grassroots organization has established a very productive partnership with the city. We've figured out how to enlarge our outreach to the community. We've educated the public about this historic park. We've raised funds, and we've deployed those funds in support of an approved landscape plan that we all agree to. Perkins Park looks better every year, and that is in large part due to the dedication of staff and volunteers. It's been a great partnership, and I think it's a great example of how teamwork can work well for all of us. I currently serve as the board chair, the board treasurer for Ventana Wildlife Society. It's a conservation nonprofit dedicated to preserving endangered species and their habitat. You may know them more familiarly as the Condor people. that experience has been a wonderful window into seeing how out of the box thinking can create solutions that were not anticipated in a routine manner. They're a wonderful group, and I've really learned a lot from them. So across my varied professional activities and volunteering, I found an approach that was very useful during my council term. And I want to give you the first steps, but you've already seen it. The step that the Climate Action Committee used really exemplifies the best planning process that I've seen for my professional work and in my work with nonprofits. First of all, you work a long time on finding out what the problem is, finding out what the needs are. That's an important first step. Then you find out everything you can from people who agree with you, people disagree with you, and you work on defining the key issues and the key problem. Then you share your ideas, so you develop a consensus approach to moving forward. And once you have a common perspective, you have a search again for solutions. This is an example of how everything should go, I think. And I think it's important, mostly important, when you have circumstances that are uncertain. And a lot of what comes before council is uncertain and not fully known. So how do you make decisions in the face of uncertainty? You do the best you can. You find out as much information as you possibly can, and you move forward. In the point where your outcome is uncertain, instituting checkpoints that make sure you're on track with the anticipated outcome is also an important part to reassure those making the decision. I believe that the breadth of my experience would be useful to council, except for watching the clock. And, and
Well, you don't have to watch the clock, would you?
there's a lot of important work coming up, and I hope I can be part of that. Pleased to answer your questions.
Thank you very much. I'll go ahead and take the first question. Thank you for the presentation. I'll go ahead and ask the roundabout question, our local roundabout project.
So I don't know if you all remember how people felt about the roundabout at 68, where 68 joins the freeway. It was predicted to end the world as we know it. And I had experience in Sedona, which had changed all of their intersections to roundabouts. So you got a little dizzy driving through Sedona. And I knew that it would be okay because in Sedona, lots of tourists are there in RVs. They managed. And as it turns out, that roundabout has worked out very well. I have some questions about this one little part where you look like you're going to hit it as you go into Pebble Beach. But I think, as people have described, the planning is really important. I do have questions about the crosswalks.
Okay, Councilmember Paduri.
Alternate with the questions and what are your views on the skateboard park?
I actually went to a skate park in Golden Gate Park with my grandson, who's 3 and was on a little scooter thing. And I was expecting to see lots of kids. What I saw were a lot of 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds who've apparently been skateboarding their entire lives. So this opened my eyes to this as a recreational opportunity, not just for kids, but for lots and lots of people. Where it goes is the key. You know, you got to have neighbors that understand and can manage any traffic. I don't think it's going to be hugely impacting parking and traffic, but I think that that's the important part about getting the neighborhood to accept having a skate park.
All right, thank you.
Councilmember Rao.
Thank you. What's your position on establishing and enforcing a more firm code of conduct for elected officials to ensure accountability and ethical behavior?
Well, on a national level, I think it's absolutely important. Maybe so. I do think it is important to develop and have a code of conduct. I would, of course, want to know what the circumstances are that highlight the need for one. Yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem Amelia.
How would you contain the financial picture on our budget in the city of Pacific Grove?
How would I contain it? Is
Yeah,
that?
how could you work to make sure we don't overspend?
Oh, well, I think a lot of knowing how to create a budget this year, next year, next year is really having good projections. Knowing where the money's coming from and what big projects and expenditures are down the road. I think 10-year budgeting, at least drafting out that far, is an important part of being able to be prepared. I think the city does have some expensive remedies coming up for long-term underinvestment in taking care of infrastructure. And so I think that needs to be put in a budget sooner rather than later. A surplus that's based on not spending money where you should isn't really a surplus.
Councilmember Walking Stick.
Thank you for coming out here, first of all. Second of all, what are your personal goals for coming on to the city council?
Oh, so this is different than being an elected official. Being an appointed official is, I think, more on the side of how can I help and participate rather than how can I set forth my personal goals that have been vetted by the electorate. So it's a different approach. My personal one is how can I be the most useful? I have a breadth of experience, both at serving on council, but also in getting teams to work effectively. How do you communicate? How do you outreach? And I'd like to bring those to bear on whatever project is being put before council.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Councilmember McDonald.
I'm trying to stay in the vein of trying to make sure everyone gets similar questions. And since you haven't been asked the housing one yet, I would like to ask that
Oh,
one too as
housing
well.
question. Housing, so when I was served on council before, we did take some actions that are, I would put under the category of enabling. So I think the first thing that planning needs to do is get rid of restrictions or requirements that prevent the development of housing. One example is there was a prohibition on lot splitting. We discussed that and allowed lots to be split. There are places that have very large lots and could easily accommodate at least one, if not a couple of more houses. If you've ever been to Morgan Hill, you see what will eventually, perhaps in about 20 years, look like an old street on the back bay of Boston. Townhouses very close together, but with a lot of variability in the way they look. And it's very dense housing, but it's pleasing and can be very attractive. I don't know if we have the place for those, but I think that we need to look at the most successful projects we've seen in other cities have been where the municipality had something to contribute that lowered the cost of creating housing so that they can be more affordable. San Jose, for instance, had a lot of dirt. They had a lot of open space. And when the city contributes the land, then you can work on projects that come out as affordable for both either renters or for buying, but somebody has to subsidize. And I don't see Pacific Grove having as much to offer in the subsidy area as some other cities do. I think it's a real challenge.
Well, thank you very much for all your responses. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for your application. And we were going to move it along. We're going to get through the applicants and we'll have a break after when the applicants are completing their presentations and question sessions. So we'll go ahead and go to Mr. Gibbs. I don't see Mr. Gibbs in the crowd. Is he online?
He is online, Mayor. I just allowed him to join as panelist.
Okay.
Mr. Gibbs, I will start the clock when you're ready.
All right, let me start over again. I just unmuted.
Hi, Mr. Gibbs.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Council. Well, some of you may know who I am. I've been in the city council meetings several times. And, from my experience with that and previous city and county commissions, I know that elected bodies in small towns like Pacific Grove are the last line of defense in our protection of our liberties and our freedoms. If you have a complaint, a grievance, or they think the city is headed in the wrong direction, and that happens, this is where you come. This is where you go. This is where people, where you can speak up, and hopefully people listen to you, listen to everybody. Pacific Grove has a lot of compelling benefits. It's one of the most beautiful places on earth. After traveling around the world and living in 15 different places, Peggy and I decided to be here, and we decided that 25 years ago. The challenge for small towns like Pacific Grove are immense. There are 400 plus towns and cities in the state of California. I'm going to list a few, and for me, these are priorities. So if you're asking what my priorities are, this would be a part of it. And I think Joe Emilio just asked a question about budget. Well, this is a huge one for Pacific Grove. Pension and bond liabilities, they're crushing some cities, not yet Pacific Grove, but our unfunded liabilities are pretty large compared to the size of our budget. A second priority is we have basically autocratic state mandates that come with punitive sanctions. Some cities have found out how to approach this. Other candidates have talked to this. I stood in front of city council to public comment and thought we were missing the opportunity with ADUs, for example. Land trusts and land co-ops are a public-private way to really make huge amounts of progress, even in places like Pacific Grove where we have limited space. We need to find the money, third, to complete important capital projects like Lovers Point Pier, and there are others. That's not the only one. And a big one for me, because I spent 40 years in business, I spent the last 15 years founding companies as an entrepreneur. We founded 4 of them, is offering an attractive environment for business. The report that came out in 2016 that I think you all know about, I've mentioned it before, said that Pacific Grove was not as friendly as it could be. It's not the #1 choice on the peninsula for business investment, right? That ought to be a huge concern with the New Kimpton Hotel coming in. It's not enough to have some really good restaurants and attractions, but a place to go downtown just to hang out, have a cup of coffee. There's some other issues which maybe seem more narrow. Keep PG kids safe, crosswalks, and the likelihood. And several people have mentioned before this, implementing a fire safe plan for Pacific Grove. I think it's a huge thing. We don't want to be caught with looking back and say, we wish we had done something like the people in Pacific Palisades or Lahaina. We do not want that. None of you want that. To have that on your conscience would be just unthinkable. In the last election, PG moved to the left, the country moved to the right. And the urge of new councils is to spend money. If you ask me about the roundabout, I think you know where I stand. Issues of eminent domain and crosswalk safety have been unanswered. Until those are answered, I'm against it. Programs like DEI, I think everybody has been mentioned tonight, but any program that imposes cultural norms on the people of the city are, I think, don't have a place in small towns, right? So I think that whatever we do, whatever I would do if you choose me as a member of the city council, is to decide with the consent of the people. I would pledge to you to walk the town. I do that quite a bit. Talk to as many people. When I get an email, when I was on the EDC, I answered over 2 years every single email. When people reached out to me, I got back to every single person. I wish the council was that way. And I think that's something to work on. Whoever you select, you're going to pick somebody. There's a lot of great candidates here. There's no doubt about that. Experience, curiosity, knowledge, skills, but really an even-handedness are very important. I think you have a lot of candidates to pick from, and I hope you do this, and I think you're being pretty serious about it. And I look forward to your questions for things that I didn't cover. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gibbs. Okay, we'll now have council questions for Mr. Gibbs. Who would like to start? I can start. I think you already addressed it though, Mr. Gibbs. You mentioned the roundabout and you do not support the roundabout. Is that correct?
I think what I said, Mayor, is that there are some unanswered questions. I sat through the presentations by the roundabout consultant, and I asked him questions during the breaks. And I asked him to address personally the safety issue, and I didn't see any data in the report. I know there was some talk of that satisfied me that the roundabout for kids crossing in safe crosswalks, I think Ms. Bornstein mentioned this, I think is still a huge issue. And it's too big of an issue to not be addressed until I can say I'm for it or against it. And if you drive past that area, there are two pieces of private property that stick out in the middle of that. If you look at the drawing for the crosswalk, a couple of pieces of those lands are going to fall victim to what's called eminent domain or takings. The government takes the property. They have to reimburse the landowners. But I think that's a huge legal liability, and I would like some discussion about that and the legal liability that would go along with it. I haven't heard any discussion of that tonight, of those two issues. And to me, they're negatives that haven't been answered. So not against roundabouts. I think they can be efficient. This one has problems.
The answer. Go ahead and we'll go to Councilmember Rocking Stick.
Mr. Gibbs, I wanted your thoughts on how you would plan to work with others, whether that's members of the council, the city, BCCs, or the public.
Work with others. In part of my experience, and I didn't really cover it, it was in my application. For example, I was a long time ago, far, far away, was the chairman of a drug and alcohol commission in the county operation. It's quite a large operation. We had authority over all the contracts. We had approval of all the money in the budget. It was a multi-million-dollar budget. And I ended up as the chairman because nobody else, it was such a contentious drug and alcohol board that nobody else wanted to do it. I was the most junior person. I was the one that asked questions, tried to get people to make input, get other people involved. We were a vendor-driven organization, and we had contracts that weren't being monitored, and that was really the source of the issues. So in that particular situation, I scheduled a breakfast with the executive director of the drug and alcohol operation in this entire county. Again, multi-million-dollar operation, and once a week. He didn't like it very much. We had breakfast and hashed out the issues, and he became a friend and supported the activities, and we revised the bidding process, the review process. We did on-site inspections, and we got everybody on board. So I can only point to my experience in getting people to work together. I was chosen for by the governor of Ohio for a state school to reinvent schools in the Cincinnati School District, which were completely broken. And the Speaker of the House at the time actually put me on the commission. Had to work with principals, and people couldn't get along, couldn't negotiate, wouldn't come to mediation processes, and got people working together on that. So maybe those aren't relative to Pacific Grove, but I stand ready to talk to anybody, any place, anytime, and I think most of you know that. Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Councilmember McDonald.
Again, staying in the line of trying to give equal questions to the candidates, being that we do have the housing mandate that we need to address, what are your thoughts on ways as a city that we can address those challenges?
Well, Councilmember McDonald, I appreciate the question, and I know you're very interested in this, and as is the council because of the state mandate. But to me, there's a couple different parts of this. One is just filling out the paperwork. We actually have a consultant. We're paying a lot of money to an outside consultant to help guide us on this plan. We have a lot of expertise. One of your candidates, maybe up next, Mr. Murphy, was on a planning commission for a while. And, there's a lot of great talent in the city of Pacific Grove that I wish was tapped more freely. And perhaps that's why Mr. Murphy has become a candidate. But so the issue is, one is meeting the state mandate and getting our reports on schedule and on time. And we could have done a lot better job of that. We put ourselves at risk when we missed some deadlines or came close to missing some deadlines. The other part of it is that, we have a limited space. And I would like to see more discussion. I know we've had public meetings and that sort of thing, but as I mentioned earlier, the ADU process, we're now approving maybe 2 or 3 a month ADUs. There are 250 to 300 unpermitted spaces that could become ADUs. So we should have an ombudsman for ADUs, a fast track. If you are out there in the city, you're worried about entering the ADU process and the planning and permitting process, and give them some leeway for not that process not coming back on them with any kind of fines or slowdown or retribution. Let's just get that stock up and available for young people and some of the elderly people in town who may be, upwards of my age out there. And then land trust, and I think Mr. Walkingstick might have some expertise in this area, but land trust and land co-ops, which are public-private partnerships, are a great way to start addressing those issues. We should initiate those things right now. Thank you for the question.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Barry.
Thank you, and thank you for participating in the process, Mr. Gibbs. I pretty much know the majority of your positions, but I was wondering what your stance was on the skateboard park.
Good question. Skateboard park. You know what? I sat through, like you all did, some of you did, 2 or 3 hours of public comment. And I remember there was a young man, he was 7 or 8 years old, and he got up and he made the most compelling statement, personal statement for a skateboard park. And, there was all of the comment and all of the frustration because the people came back multiple times. And it was almost if, I understand what the challenges were, but it was almost if you weren't listening to the kids. The kids are the essence of Pacific Grove. We tend to be, on average, an older community, and seeing kids out and about shopping, we bring our grandkids here, 3 grandkids here, and they love it. But be more opportunities. And I was a little bit disappointed to see the chair of the rec board not reappointed because she was operating in that direction. So I think there's issues about where to put it and safety and liability. What I suggested to the skateboard, the people that were involved in this very early on, they were out at the farmer's market, and I said, why don't you guys put together a GoFundMe campaign and then bring in where bring in and say, we've raised $70K or $100,000. We've hired a skateboard architect. We've come up with a plan. Don't just go and ask for a skateboard park. Be proactive, come in with some money and a plan, and I think you have a better chance. And if I was on the city council and somebody came in with a plan and some money, I'd be hard pressed to be against it, to tell you the truth. Thank you for the question, Mr. Doherty.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gibbs. Thank you for coming online tonight, speaking with us, and the presentation and question and responses. We appreciate it.
Pleasure to be here.
All right, and we'll go ahead and move. We're going to go on to Mr. Eugene Lowe. Is Mr. Lowe online? Oh, there he is. He's here in the chamber.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. You have my application. So the main reason I'm here is so that you can put my face with that application, and I'll take whatever questions you have. I would like to say at least that I am a resident of Pacific Grove. Well, yes, of course. But mainly I want to say that because it makes me happy. I've been in town for 29 years. My children are born and raised and educated here. And to go to the store or to walk along the rec trail, I kind of have to budget an extra hour because you run into people and you say, hi, my activities in the community have largely been around my kids' schools, their extracurricular activities, church, playing in the local orchestras, et cetera, and then branching out from there. So I'm really delighted to be a resident of this town. I guess I would also say that I think of myself as a person of character. You all are, as are the candidates you have for the vacancy. think probably what's unusual about me is the extent to which I try to align my personal lifestyle with my values. I had originally written in my application that my values are extreme, and then someone looked at that and said, no, your values are not extreme. Your values are very commonplace. The degree to which you try to live aligned with those values is what's extreme. But I really want to emphasize that being a public servant means letting your personal values take a back seat to what the community wants. And that means compromising your personal values in affecting public policy, not that you yourself personally will be compromised. I would like to end by pointing out the, I guess, big shortcoming in my application, and that is that I don't have a big record of being a public official, being involved in the commissions and so on. And so when I take your questions about policy, I'll be happy to answer them as a private citizen, but I would expect that if I were to come on board and take to fill the vacancy, that there would be a lot of learning on my behalf. I'm a relatively smart person. I welcome challenges. I would dive in. The main reason for my application is because I have a friend who instigated it, and I have other friends who then endorsed it, and they thought that a resident who is sensible, who compromises, who can articulate the reasons for difficult decisions would be a great addition to the city council.
Thank you, Mr. Rowe. I'll go ahead and start off the questions, and I'm just going to go with some popular ones tonight. So why don't we cover the roundabout in the skate park? First, can you tell us how you feel about our local skate park roundabout project up off of 68 here in PG?
Yeah, I'm again, as a citizen, and then I would have to give this much further thought. In general, I'm a really big fan of roundabouts. Brilliant, great way for moving vehicular traffic. One of the issues is that who's crossing those streets? Well, it's Michael Logan helping these Forest Grove kids crossing the street. And so a mechanism that's great for moving vehicular traffic needs to take into account what pedestrians are crossing the street. And talking with other people, I've heard a lot of concerns about the cost, regardless of who's paying that cost.
Thank you very much. And now as to the skate park, what's your thoughts on that?
In general, as a private citizen, when I see skate parks, it seems like they breathe vibrancy into a community. They are a great third place, a place for people to meet. And then I guess it comes down to details.
So with respect to that, do you have a sense for thumbs up, thumbs down on
Generally, thumbs up.
Okay. Who else would like to? Councilmember Peduri.
I was just curious, knowing that you've been in town for a while. Have you ever previously applied to the boards and commissions?
I have not. No.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else?
Well, we still have the affordable housing question. And we still need to do the obligatory affordable housing question.
Right. Well, this question that everyone's been deliberating for a long time, I'm going to now answer you in 1 or 2 minutes. No, clearly it's a very difficult question. I think it's really important. I guess I would say 2 things. One of them is that there is no silver bullet. And so I'm happy to see that there are a number of proposals of different varieties, of different timeframes, like this is what we can do right now, this is further, there are different time horizons, and that's the way it needs to be. The other thing is that one of the big challenges to providing affordable housing is a NIMBY attitude, and we kind of need to get around that. I am very happy with, I think it's SB4, the Yes in God's Backyard, that aligns with who I am as a church person, and it gives educational and religious institutions the opportunity to to really make meaningful progress. So it's tricky, but I think it really is in our interests to fix that problem in our backyard.
Councilmember McDonald, did you want to even it out here with the question? Oh, you did, okay. I think we got it. Okay.
I actually was curious about one more thing.
Sure.
As the only candidate with a PhD in physics, how would you see that being worked into your contribution to city council in the city?
Yeah, interesting question. I don't think necessarily in any specific way. And so, for example, my career has been in the computing industry. So whatever I learned about whatever, jargon I might throw in there hasn't really been part of my career. And maybe even actually the computing is more relevant, where what you need to do is tackle these big complex systems. And, no one's going to read through 1 million lines of code. You have to figure out where you need to deep dive, where you need to get breadth, ask questions, and so on. So I think it's just a general skill that everyone here has of dealing with complexity. And that's just my personal start. That's just part of my personal experience of how I've had to deal with complexity.
Interesting. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Lau, for coming out and putting yourself out here for the application. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And last but certainly not least, we'll ask Mr. Murphy to step up to the podium here.
Good evening, Mayor Smith, council members. That was sort of humbling to listen to the other 6 candidates, and it's amazing the smart, talented, articulate, well-intentioned people who came tonight, and it does make me feel humble. I hope you read my written material. I believe I'm qualified by experience and by temperament to join you on the council. I've been here for about 15 years, and during that time, I'm sort of a political junkie. And every candidate for council or mayor says some combination of these 4 things they hope to accomplish: protect our coastline, preserve our neighborhoods, support our local businesses, and balance the city budget. And those to me are great priorities, and I support them all. But I'm not going to talk about them tonight. I was going to talk about 4 other things. We're looking at a 2-year council position, and these are 4 things I hope the council can tackle during the next 2 years. And one has already been talked about, and that's affordable housing. And I think we should do something about affordable housing, not because the state is telling us to do it or asking us to do it, but because it's the right thing to do. And I'm sure you know all the ways the lack of affordable housing affects people who are working here, the young families who are trying to stay here, older people who are trying to keep up with rent increases. At the city, we've been talking about it seriously only for about 4 or 5 years, and we sort of came late to discussing it. And I think it's one thing I would hope we could start to do, and I think it's up to you or us to do it, is start right now talking to nonprofit developers and form a partnership and build some affordable housing on public property. We also should encourage as much as we can for-profit developers to work with projects on private property. And I think it's time for us to do that. A second topic I think we should tackle is sort of related, but separate. The homeless count that the county did last year said there were about 52 unhoused people living in PG, many of them living in cars and vans. That's sort of astounding. For a big city, 52 is tiny, but for Pacific Grove, 52 is a lot. And as a city, we don't do much for our unhoused population. The county has primary responsibility. The one thing we do is we have a very small safe parking program that provides 7 spots for people to park overnight legally and safely in a parking lot. Well, if we have 52 people who need it, 7 isn't very many, and it's not enough. So I think we should expand that program and maybe extend it to city lots, so more people have the opportunity to park safely and healthily and legally overnight. And last night I was thinking, it's really cold. Imagine living in a car last night. So perhaps we should consider some sort of emergency shelter based on the temperature. A third thing has to do with infrastructure. I think we all want to live in a walkable city. And our city is sort of walkable, but often it really isn't because our sidewalks are in such disrepair. And in the way our city works, it's the property owners who are responsible for the maintenance of the sidewalks. So my first thought was, well, let's change that, and make the city responsible. But I couldn't figure out how to pay for that. So what I would suggest instead of that is some sort of low interest loan program that residents could use to keep their sidewalks in good shape, so we're not falling down and tripping on them. And the last thing I would mention is climate change. I'm happy you adopted the consultant tonight to go ahead with our climate action adaptation plan. But when I look at climate change right now, what really occurs to me is the increase of the ferocity and frequency of fires. And you just adopted a community wildlife protection plan last year that had about 50 recommendations for fire departments, city halls, and residents to do to make us safer. And I haven't seen much action on that. And I think it's urgent now. And I think we should do more to help our residents understand what they have to do to make their property safer from fire. And I'm running out of time, but I'm happy to answer your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Council questions. Councilmember Rao.
Thank you. So at the end, you had mentioned the fire mitigation, and we have two different views here in our town. We have one that is focused solely on preservation and one that is focused solely on not. So how do you balance those two things and bring the folks along to realize there is a problem? We don't want to wait until it's a catastrophe. So how do you encourage those folks to get behind action that would help to mitigate some of those risks?
There are many issues like that in Pacific Grove where people have different opinions and hold them very, very strongly. The one on fire hazard seems to revolve around George Washington Park and keeping that as a sort of a wild place, as a habitat for birds and other animals. And I'm not an expert on fire safety, and I guess I would turn to the experts to tell us what to do. In the most recent talks we've had about that and what is contained in the plan is perimeter, cutting the grass around the perimeter, and a proposal to thin some of the interior lands. How do you get people to buy into that? That's a tough question. I think you listen to everyone and you listen hard, and then you make your own decision and try to bring people along. I don't, just a knee-jerk reaction. Hey, the fire is terrible in Los Angeles. We have to cut down trees right now. I wouldn't favor that approach. I think we have to take a breath. And the other thing that occurs to me is when you walk around the perimeter of Washington Square Park, the homes right next to the park, and many of them have trees right next to their home, and their trees overhanging their house. So it's just a tough question all around. But with any tough question like this, as a council person, you have to listen. You have to let people that you know that you're listening to them, that you understand what they're saying. And if you feel differently, you have to do the best you can to explain why you feel differently.
Okay.
That's sort of a wishy-washy answer.
May I ask a follow-up?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So in that case, would you support a change to the feeling in the town that, if you've got a lot of overgrowth and you see people out there losing their fire insurance, would you support them being able to trim trees and do other things to mitigate that risk and try and get their hazard insurance back?
A reasonable amount of trimming would be fine. What is reasonable? I would follow the advice of the fire experts. And my understanding is so far, they have sort of said that the status quo is safe. And I haven't challenged that. I have no reason to challenge it. So that's where we are. You're welcome.
Council Member Paduri, you have a question?
Thank you. Thank you for being here and providing your application and going through the motions. I was just curious, I came into the council in 2020 when things were already in motion, but what is your opinion about the ATC project as it stands today?
I voted against it when I was on the planning commission because I didn't think the EIR was adequate, and I was particularly concerned that there seemed to be no real understanding of the harbor seal issue on the part of the developer. And also there was no provision for low cost accommodation. And so I voted against it. Now it's been approved, so I don't, and coastal commission staff agreed with the negative vote that the planning commission made. And there are revisions in the project, and it's a done deal at this point.
I'm just going to chime in here with my roundabout plus skate park. You did talk about affordable housing in your statement, so let's start with the roundabout. How do you feel about our local roundabout project?
I'm sort of lukewarm about it. And as a resident of the city, I never felt unsafe going through a 5-way stop is it's odd, but I've never felt safe. I've never seen an accident. I've never seen a near miss. On the other hand, I'm a driver. I'm not now a biker, and I'm not a pedestrian in that area. I followed the issue. I didn't hear much evidence that there's a real safety issue at the intersection as far as accidents, serious accidents. I just didn't hear that. So at this point, I guess it depends on how much it'll cost. And I've heard, $5 million from TAMC, and that's from us, that's tax money, but $5 million, and then some other amount of money from the city. And I've heard everything from another $1 million to another $5 million, and I don't know what's the accurate number. Years ago, before the roundabout project came up, there was a project to improve that sunset, that corridor through Forest Hill. And I was part of meetings. I don't think I was on planning then, but I was part of meetings with residents and businesses. And there was much more emphasis on not that intersection, but that whole area, make it more pedestrian friendly. Right now, it's just for cars. You don't see people walking up and down Forest Hill. So I guess I would almost wish that money, and this was TAMC money then we were talking about too. So I guess I would wish we would spend that money further up the hill, making it better for pedestrians. And again, I'm willing to, if it's a done deal and we've already committed to it, this is an academic discussion, and I don't think my opinion matters.
Got it. Okay. And then just to follow the skate park, what's your thoughts on the skate park?
Well, I wasn't in favor of the skate park in George Washington Park. I thought that was the wrong place. On the other hand, if a lot of people want a skate park, and particularly young families want a skate park, it seems absurd that a city this size, we can't find a place for it. So I don't favor it in George Washington Park. I don't have a suggestion for where to put it, but it seems to me if we want one, we should be able to find a place for it. The obvious thing that occurs to me is working in partnership with the school district. They have plenty of land. It's for, primarily for kids. And I don't know the status of any talks we've had with the school district about having it on their property or some kind of partnership. I just don't know.
Great. Council, or Mayor Pro Tem Amelia.
Well, since everybody stole my questions,
Well, give me an easy one then.
so I was looking at your resume about local politics. And it sounds like you've been involved. Mayor Peak was elected. Apparently you were involved in that. Cynthia Garfield was elected. I know Tama was running with me and the first time around and she didn't get elected, but a great person. I was wondering a couple of questions. What's your thoughts? Where did you do anything with Measure Z on the dealing with the the 6 districts or 4 districts for the
Six seems like too many. And trying to play with the map now and divide the city into 6 pieces reinforces my feeling that 4 might have worked better than 6. I understand the argument that 6 perhaps brings a wider diversity of opinions, so that makes it a little trickier. But 4 made sense to me.
Okay, I have a follow-up question on the election. Was there anybody that you helped with their elections in the recent 2025 election?
24.
24, I mean, end of 24,
I-
November.
I had a Lucoletti sign in my front yard. I had a Paul Walking Stick sign in my front yard. I think I made small donations to them both.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilman Walking Stick. Yep. Did you have a question? Okay. All right. I think you covered the ground well. So thank you so much, Mr. Murphy. We've taken a ton of testimony tonight so far. So I'm gonna go ahead and call for a 10-minute break. We'll come back at 8:30. At 8:30, we will gauge how many public commenters we have, and I will determine the amount of time per comment at that time. So we'll see you at 8:30. Thank you very much.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
About when fired up, I'll listen to some people up there, I will say, but. Welcome back, everybody. Here we are with, this is post-break, January 15th, PG Council meeting, regular session. We are in the middle of item 11A, the vacancy. We have taken the testimony from all of the candidates. And now we are going out for public comment. I'm going to take public comment in the chamber first, but I need a show of hands as to how many people are wishing to speak on the item. And Madam Clerk, can you take a count?
About 8 or 9.
Okay, I think I saw about 10. Okay, and then can we check online? If you're online and you wish to comment on the vacancy item, I'm gonna need to see your hand now online.
About 6.
Okay, so it's talking 15. Okay, so I am going, based on the number of commenters, I'm going to limit comment to 2 minutes per person. So I'm going to take first, members in the chambers, please, I'm sorry, members of the public in chambers, please come forward to make your comment on the vacancy item. You'll have 2 minutes. And then we will go to the online people. And if you could please queue up and come forward and sit in the front seats or line up.
Council members, my name is Hank Armstrong, 40-year resident of Pacific Grove. First, I want to thank all the candidates, the applicants, because I'm impressed and happy that they want to even get involved. And I also want to thank you personally for what you do, because it's a hard job. And you know that better than I, but I've watched long enough to know, thank you. I know you're not doing it for the money. I know you're doing it to help. So thank you. I'm here to endorse Ms. Garfield, Cynthia Garfield, primarily because I think the job you have is hard, and I think experience matters. It's a fairly steep learning curve, and there's not a lot of time to gain that knowledge base that you have to gain. And I think having somebody step up, as long as they have a proven track record to go with that experience, is a big asset. So thank you. That's all I had to share.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lynn Blaskovich, and I'm here to support Cynthia. As a past council member, Cynthia is aware of the work and effort that needs to happen as a member, so she can hit the ground running, and she will run. I'll leave you with 3 reasons to choose Cynthia as a council member. Number 1, Cynthia always does her homework. Number 2, she is seasoned and well-reasoned. And number 3, she always acts for the good of PG. Sounds like a perfect candidate for you to appoint. I encourage you to appoint Cynthia. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Allison Jones Pomato. I have been a resident of Pacific Grove since 1997. I am here also in support of Cynthia Garfield. I recognize, as Hank said, that this is a big learning curve. I worked for Congress. I've worked with many elected officials, and it takes a long time to get everything you need to know into your head, and where it comes naturally to you to respond in the ways that needs to be. I think Cynthia has that experience that she can bring to you on day one. And I respect her so much. I've worked with her on the library fundraising. I've worked with her with the Friends of Perkins Park. And I know she has what it takes to work with all of you as a collaborative team member. And I was so impressed with many of the people I saw tonight. I think you have a hard task in front of you, and I appreciate everything you do for that. Thank you.
My name's Noreen Nance. I've been in the city probably 25 years. I'm also a foundation person. It sounds like there's a few of us here. And that's where I met Cynthia. I met her on the library foundation board while we were raising those funds for the library. And we all know that that was a pretty big success. I then supported her when she was running for council. Cynthia understands the complexities of city governance. She's been on council. She's thoughtful and diligent in researching an issue before making a decision. And I urge you to select Cynthia for the seat on your new council. Thank you very much.
Hello, Mayor Smith and council members. Thank you. I am here to show my strong support for Ross Davison for the open council seat. Ross has a unique background that would bring fresh perspective to the current council. He represents a generation that's inherited the challenges of limited resources and housing, as well as accelerated climate change. Ross has proven himself as an innovative member of the Planning Commission with an eye on climate mitigation and adaptation. He brings a unique life skill and valuable vocational expertise that dovetail with PG's current needs. And his incredible resume demonstrates his balance and drive. Ross' presence on this council would give his generation a face and a voice in our local government. His representation is desperately needed and welcomed by the young working residents of Pacific Grove, and it'll be a breath of fresh air for all ages of the residents. So thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Smith and council members. My name is Bill Peak. And I think that Don Murphy would be an excellent member of council. As you heard, he has long been dedicated service to the community and to city government. He thoroughly understands community issues and the workings of government. He'd be a real asset. Thank you for your consideration and good luck.
Thank you. If there's anyone else that's going to in chambers, come on up, sit at the front if you don't mind.
Good evening. My name is Séverine Lubin, and I'm a resident of Pacific Grove. So I reviewed all the application before coming tonight, and I read everything the candidates had to say, but I needed to hear them in order to have more solid opinion. And it is just a personal opinion, nothing based on anything but what I felt. And I just want to strongly support Mrs. Bornstein and Mr. Davison for the post of council member. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, Joy Colangelo. I think we are incredibly lucky with this I can't even believe my eyes and ears with this level of candidacy. And I'd like to support first Ross and then Cynthia Garfield. I think the reasonableness of Don Murphy and Ms. Borstein are also pivotal. I don't think we can make a wrong move among any of those four. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, council members, my name is Bill Camp, resident of Pacific Grove, and I'm here in support of Cynthia Garfield. You've heard a lot about what she's done. Her accomplishments are substantial. I'm going to add one more. She served on the FORA board as FORA was winding down and really developed a very positive reputation there and did a lot of good work to help Pacific Grove and other cities avoid financial liability spillouts from the end of that particular board. She is driven by a passion to understand issues very thoroughly, but she also knows that in the end, you have to get to a conclusion. It will often not be a unanimous cheerleading session for any particular action, in fact, often quite contentious. But you still need to act to get to where we have to go to provide the leadership for the future of the city. And I think she would do an outstanding job in that aspect of it. And I'm going to get into something else as a personal recommendation when you get to the council dialogue on the nomination process. And I would personally urge you to consider getting all the nominations together for two reasons, and then giving each of the council members a choice of who they want to vote for. The reason is it's equity for the candidates rather than whoever shouts out first, I nominate so-and-so. But for the council members, voting for people is vastly preferable to putting you in the position of voting against people. And if it's possible to make that adaptation to your process, I think the candidates would appreciate it, and you'll appreciate not being in the position of having to vote against people when you go through. So anyway, I strongly endorse Cynthia for the role.
Go online now.
First, you have the floor.
Just expanded to 10.
You'll need to unmute.
Okay, let's go to the next.
All right.
Am I on? Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes, we can, Vicky. Go ahead.
Good evening. I hope you all read my email in support of Don Murphy for the vacant seat on the PG City Council. In dealing with city business, Don has been consistently and impressively thoughtful and ethical, fair-minded and level-headed, candid and transparent. Also warm, kind, modest, as we saw tonight, open and receptive, and a good listener. I've never sensed that he came to a session with his mind already made up and closed. It was clear that he was sincere about hearing everyone. You've heard many residents advocating for Don, especially in the written comments. Tonight, everyone was impressive in their presentations. I was really impressed with all the candidates, and you had a difficult decision. Everyone will have cited Don's wide experience in serving the city, and that's extremely important. The many uncommon virtues that make up his character, he knows and values Pacific Grove, and he understands the systems of governance. Viewing the written comments presented to the council, Don Murphy received a large majority of endorsements by the community. None of the other candidates ran close to that. Now, I hope you'll respect the very strong feelings the community has for Don and will vote to appoint Don Murphy to the council's vacant seat. Thank you for giving PG residents this time to comment.
Thank you. Marge, you have the floor.
Hey. My name is Marge Brigadier, and I am a resident of Pacific Grove. I feel that Don Murphy is the most experienced and the best choice for City Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa Ciani?
Thank you. Pacific Grove needs this council to appoint a new member who has significant long-term experience, expertise, integrity, and a demonstrated commitment to transparency and to the community as a whole. These qualifications are particularly necessary as our new city manager navigates through challenging conditions left by the departed manager and a lack of institutional memory. Consider the city's late submission and ongoing challenges with a housing element and an understaffed and undertrained community development department, not their fault. Don Murphy stands out among the applicants for his nearly 12 years experience on Planning Commission, his work ethic and integrity, and his dedication to serving Pacific Grove as a volunteer in many capacities. From Housing Element Advisory Committee, George Washington Park Work Crew, the Aquarium and Point Lobos State Natural Reserve, and meeting members in the community as he supported efforts to limit short-term rentals that hurt our neighborhoods. In addition to his service on Planning Commission, including his 3 years as chair, he regularly attends council meetings and provides carefully considered comments here. Don truly cares about Pacific Grove's people and treasured natural and cultural resources. Please select Don Murphy for his outstanding qualifications, commitment to good governance, and the highest ethical standards. Always thoroughly prepared for meetings. Don asks the important questions, listens to all points of view, weighs matters to the best of his ability, with a deep understanding of Pacific Grove's charter, general plan, and zoning code, and a strong commitment to public education and engagement. Please select Don Murphy as the outstanding applicant among other good ones for the city council vacancy. He's certainly ready to step right into the job. Thank you.
Sharon Miller.
I don't know any of the candidates personally, so I read their applications and listened carefully tonight, looking for experience, the ability to express viewpoints clearly, and a willingness to cooperate even when they don't agree 100% with the other council members. I would be very pleased if you were to select Bornstein, Garfield, Davison, or Murphy. Those seem to be at the top of my list of necessary characteristics. Those who are not selected, thank you so much. And I think there will be other things for you to do for our lovely little city. Thank you for giving us a chance to weigh in. It's a big decision the council's making, and I wish you the best.
Thank you. Jane Haynes.
Good evening. Until 5 p.m. tonight, I've kept track of all the written comment letters that were posted on the website pertaining to this agenda item. And the last few minutes, I've been keeping track of the oral comments. On the written comments, 44 were posted. Only 2 of the candidates received any comments at all. Ross Davidson received 6 comments, and people asking that he be chosen. His resume is very impressive, and he is a member of our planning commission right now. The other candidate that received a lot of written comments is Don Murphy. 34 written comments. His resume is also very impressive. And until recently, he's been on the Planning Commission for 13 years. In addition, tonight, there were 5 for Cynthia Garfield. There was 1 for Davison, or these are oral comments. There were 5 for Don Murphy. And so if you add those up, I don't know, there were 44 written for Murphy. I mean, there were 44 in total written. 6 requested Davison, 34 requested Murphy, and now it's up to you to choose. So thank you for listening.
Thank you. Dixie Lane. Okay, Kim?
Thank you. You know, these are really trying times right now, as we all are aware. And so we need somebody very steady at the helm here. And he is coming with all this experience off the Planning Commission, which would be very helpful to many other city council members as well as staff and our city manager. He is very transparent, easy to work with, and willing to get in there and do the hard work. Please choose Don Murphy for this position. Thank you.
Thank you. Inga Lawrence Dormer.
Thank you. I've been very much afraid that the majority council has already made a preordained decision. As in all small towns, word gets around pretty quickly that extensive lobbying to council members was already going on before applications were submitted, and the city attorney and city manager tried to shut it down. It would be very interesting to know ex parte disclosures had they been a part of this process, but since they are not, I can only hope the council listens to public comment and chooses the best fit to fully represent all of the community as their council choice, and especially as we move into district elections. And certainly not someone who is completely opposed to the Citizens Initiative Ballot Measure M, which was overwhelmingly passed by City of PG voters in 2018. Thank you very much.
Thank you. John Aikman.
Hi, thank you. I hate to sound like an echo, but I too was impressed by a lot of the candidates tonight. I think there's some very capable people there that I hope will volunteer for some other city roles and get involved in the community and help. But I do believe that it was obvious from the interviews and what was said that there is one in particular that's ready to get up on the dais tonight, right now, and step right in and take over. That would be Don Murphy. He just got termed out from the Planning Commission, so he's right up to date on our planning and building codes, city ordinances and policies and procedures, and staffing. He would be right up to speed tonight, not even tomorrow, and ready to go. And I believe he'd be very helpful to city government, the most pressing problems we have right now. I've known him for years. I know he's a hands-on helper. He can digest complicated material or get down on the ground and help pull weeds, whichever needs doing at the time. I would recommend him without any reservation. And I hope to see Don sitting in that empty seat before the night's out. Thank you.
Thank you. Hattie Reese.
Thank you for this amazing discussion tonight. So happy with the quality of the candidate pool. I just want to raise my hand for the topic of women's equity and say that we have two amazing women candidates, former Councilwoman Cynthia Garfield and also Ms. Bernstein. So I would just suggest that given the balance on the City Council right now and the sophistication of these two women, that one of them should be chosen. Excellent candidates, amazingly brilliant, sophisticated women that you can choose among. And the rest, I would hope, would serve on various commissions, and everyone should stay in.
Thank you. And Dixie Lane.
Good evening. Sorry, I punched the wrong button last time. Thank you for taking my call. I have been through this process several times, probably a half dozen. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm getting feedback. That's why I asked. I've been through actually this process several times, and in the past, I always felt that it was a very well thought out process. And this time, I have some uneasiness about it, but I think that we're all going to do the right thing. And I would just like to say that when we put this process in place those many years ago, that the voters of Pacific Grove thought highly enough of our legislative branch, if you will, or the council, that we gave you our proxy. And with that proxy, our expectations is that you would listen to the community, review our candidates, which I would just like to say that those comments of we never get enough qualified people to run for council, I think we can do away with. This was an incredible group. And I would just like to say, I would like you to welcome Don Murphy to the council tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Carmelita Garcia?
Thank you so much. It would have been, I think, very beneficial to the public had ex parte communications been part of this process. I think it would have been very revealing. I also want to suggest that in the next upcoming election that Article 13 of the charter be changed. I feel very strongly that a vacancy of this sort should go to the next vote getter in an election. I think the appointment process such as this can be very tilted. I think tonight is a good demonstration of that. Having said all that, I highly recommend Don Murphy to fill the vacant seat. He is so qualified, he's up to date. He has served on the Planning Commission for several years and fits all of the characteristics and the talents that a council member should possess. And I agree with all the other speakers, particularly Tom Aikman, that he could be seated tonight and and just running from the very beginning. So again, I encourage you to vote for Don Murphy, nominate him, appoint him, and let's get on with business. So thank you very much.
Thank you. No further hands are raised, Mayor.
Okay.
Mayor,
Closing public comment at this time.
yeah, I have a
Yes.
suggestion, is that we ask the city clerk to put up on the screen the steps 6 through 10 slide so that that'll be.
Yes,
front of
please.
mind.
Yes, please. Public comment is closed. We're going to place up steps 6 through 10, which we're going to follow now in the selection in our discussion / nomination portion of the evening and vote. Just a sec. Let me just get this process up and I will recognize you. I just want to have this up while you're speaking. So these are the next steps for the public at home and for the public in chambers that you can follow along with what is going to happen. And if members of the council would like to ask Mr. Perrick to go over this again, he will do so now. Otherwise, we can proceed with discussion. Okay, seeing none, Councilmember Walking Stick.
Thank you. As former Mayor Bill Kemp brought up, instead of the nomination process becoming a rush the mic situation, we've got a lot of amazing candidates, and I want to express my gratitude to each and every one of them for committing to this kind of civic involvement. But the suggestion that was given by former Mayor Kemp was to everyone just gives a nomination and then we vote for the person that we want. I wanted to put forth the idea of maybe a weighted voting where we have our top 3 picks, and then the weighting is your first pick gets 3 points, second pick gets 2, third favorite gets 1 point. You add up all the points for all of the different candidates, and the points winner takes it. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the, at this time, I'm going to have the city attorney just go over the process that we've designed for this, and then we can take nominations.
Certainly. Let's just go through the steps that are in the process. I should explain that this process is not something that's dictated by the charter or by your code. So you do have the opportunity, if you wanted to change how you wanted to proceed here, you could do that. This was a suggested process. So if there's something else that you as a group believe would be one that you would prefer, provided that it, is one that is satisfying the requirements of due process, I would say that you could do that if you come to that conclusion. But the process as it's in front of you, I know I mentioned this, but it's been a little while since I did that, and there may be people that have tuned in after I made those comments. So we are now in the second part of the process. The steps are on the screen. The step 6 would be council discussion, which is happening now. And then a nomination would be made of an applicant. You might choose to modify that process, as I said in my comments. But the process as it's described here would be then the next step after there's a nomination is whether there's a second. And if there is a second for that nomination, then the council would vote on that nomination. And then step 8, if you have 4 votes in favor of that applicant, then you have selected the appointment and that the mayor would then make, because it's been more than 30 days. But as I mentioned before, Mayor Smith has indicated that he's deferring to the council first to see whether or not the council can reach 4 in favor of a particular candidate. Step 9, that's a process then that would continue. If the first nominated applicant did not receive 4 votes, then another council member could make a nomination, a vote, if that council member reaches 4. And then at some point, if it's clear that you haven't been able to reach 4, at midnight, you could decide to say that there's basically been an inability of the council to reach a majority, and at that point the mayor could make the appointment. But in response to Councilmember Walkingstick's comment, there's no reason you couldn't use the weighted voting or some other method that you come up with, as long as it satisfies the requirements of due process. So I don't see how weighted voting would be contrary to due process principles. So if that's one that the council favors, or some other one, or the one that was in the agenda, any of those would be acceptable.
Thank you. So my comment is the weighted voting is far too complicated for this. The only thing we've all kind of prepared based on this, talking to the city attorney, we've come in here. And I think what you have to do is you have to keep it in your mind. You have to realize who you're going to vote for, who you're not going to vote for, so to speak. And when you make that vote, then you make the vote. That's my opinion of it. And we've come in here tonight prepared for this particular process. So a weighted vote, I don't think that's even a consideration. There is possibly a consideration for taking nomination and see if we can get more than one nomination in a second, and then taking votes in vis-a-vis those. I think we could devise a strategy on that. But we're kind of doing this on the fly, and this whole thing was prepared the way it was for this evening, and it has gone relatively well, I would say, to this point. So I'll listen to other members of the council on this issue if anyone has any additional comment. Yes, Councilmember McDonald.
Thank you, Mayor. This is just strictly related to the process. I actually appreciate what former Mayor Bill Camp had proposed. It's hard if different people are thinking different things and we don't have a full discussion of all the qualifications of each person. So I think that it's important for all of us to kind of talk and discuss who we think is the most qualified, who we think would be an appropriate person, taking all everything we've heard tonight and everything we've read into account. But I also have had concerns from the beginning about the idea of whoever gets nominated first, everyone has to vote no on that if they want somebody different. So I like the idea, if that's possible, of putting in the nominations of who the top candidates are and then figuring out a way to do that so that it's not it will put us in the position of maybe having to vote no for somebody that we don't necessarily oppose, but isn't who we think is the most qualified for whatever perspectives we have. And that's my concern, that it won't actually be a fully fair and transparent process.
Okay.
Well,
Anyone else?
Mayor, based upon what I heard from Councilmember McDonald, if the council does have that opportunity, I just want to make clear from the legal standpoint that if the council wished to, each of you take in turn an expression of what your who your preferred candidate is. I mean, that's the discussion part in step 6, and that's where we are now. So the nomination process is what it is, as it's described here, and then in the voting process. So if you wanted to change that, you can do that, but you know, it's up to the council and the will of the council in this.
Councilmember Rao?
Thank you. I do think that there's some value in narrowing it down. I mean, it's been said tonight, but I don't think it can be said enough. We have an embarrassment of riches to pick from. I mean, seriously, these candidates are just, and they all bring something different. So could we take 7 of you together and smush you together, and it would be incredible, and we probably could dismiss the rest of us, but I mean, I think there is value to narrowing it down, but just an embarrassment of riches. And thank you all very much for everything that you did.
Thank you so much. So my take would be, perhaps let's see who gets a nomination in a second. There's only 6 people up here, so it's going to be a max of 3. So whoever gets a nomination in a second, then we can go there, get to that point, and then decide how we're going to vote vis-a-vis those 2 or 3 folks. That's my recommendation. It's kind of like a substitute motion. So that way we're not just picking the first person that gets picked. We can have 2, but no more than 2, because you can't, you got your choice. You get one bullet.
Yeah, I'm not sure does everybody else understand that? Okay.
Well, I'm saying someone can make a nomination. Let's see if it gets a second. If it doesn't get a second, we don't vote on that person, because that would never occur in any case. Then if the second person were to get a nomination other than that candidate, then we'd have 2 on the floor. That would narrow it down. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. And so what you're saying is I just want to make sure that the entire council and the public understands what's being suggested. And what I think I heard was that before you vote on a nomination, you would ask, is there a nomination? A council member would say, yes, I nominate candidate X. And then if there's a second, then that person's name is been nominated. And then another council member, if they wanted to, could nominate someone else and to see if there's a second. And you, maybe each of you, perhaps if that's what I'm hearing, it could make a nomination. If you hadn't heard your preferred candidate nominated already, then you might want to nominate your preferred candidate. Then you would know who the pool is of candidates. And I'm understanding, at least what I think I'm hearing, is that this would be the effort to narrow the pool of candidates. But I'm not sure then where you go. I mean, let's take this as a hypothetical. Suppose there's 3 candidates that get a second. So then you've got 3 names. Then the question would be, then what do you do after you've got 3? Or there may be 1, there may be 2, there may be 3, there may be 6, I guess, in theory. But
Well, I would say, I'm going to let Chaps talk right now, but what I would say is I think you get your nomination in your second, then you're with that pick. You're not going to make another motion you've seconded another candidate. So the max is 3. And then maybe we could just take a roll call by name.
well, I think the max could be 6 if you're going to have, if you got 6 council members, each of you might have a different person to nominate. I mean, I don't know. I'm just trying to play out what the prospects are here first as to what this option would include, and then how the voting is going to work.
Right.
Once you narrow it to 6 or less, then what do you do? So before you start into this, you dive into this pool, I'm just suggesting that you figure out what if you're not using the process that's on the board, then we need to develop a process so it's clear as to what these nominations mean and how you're going to vote on them once you do that.
Yeah, okay. Councilmember Padir?
Can we pull up the next slide over here with the names? My suggestion is just have the city clerk read the first name and say if anybody's nominated or not. If there are no nominations, for example, then that candidate is not going to the next round. And so that thereby we're narrowing the field down to the next round. If anybody gets nominated and there's a second there, then essentially that particular candidate is going to the next round.
I missed the last part. I got the first part, which was you go to candidate 1 and you see if anybody wants to nominate that candidate.
Mhm.
And if there is, and there's a second, then that person is
In round 2.
Moves to round 2, and you go through that process
For
I guess
each of the
with all the candidates.
Correct.
And then once you've done that and you have, let's just say hypothetically 3 candidates who have received
Can I
a
interject?
second, what do you do then?
Yes, so my suggestion is let's finish that first step and then decide what we want to do with the second round too.
Well, I think may I speak?
Yes.
I think the next question is then, do we vote in the order in which they were nominated? Do we go in the reverse order? That's really the outstanding question at that point, isn't it?
Yeah, I think what I'm trying to express here is I think the rules need to be stated now, and then you don't do it, kind of in stages. So if there's consensus of the council to use the process that's been described by Councilwoman Praduri, that's fine. You could go through the list, see if there's somebody that nominates candidate that's listed as number 1, and if there's a second. But my point being that after you get through all the names on the list, you're going to have a certain number of names left. I mean, if there's only 1 name left on the list, then that's easy. But if you got 2 or more candidates that are still in the running, if you will, then what you need to decide is how are you going to vote at that point?
And on that, I would say we just vote our candidate at that point. Orally, we take a oral vote for each candidate. What do you think about that?
My view is I don't know who is getting into round 2. We can make a better decision once we know how many candidates are getting into round 2.
Well,
So-
you can do that. All I'm saying is, you might want to think about it now rather than later, but you can wait. You can go through the process you described, and then you can talk about what you're going to do for your next step, if you will.
To choose from, and we'll have a motion to essentially nominate a person at that point and collect the votes for the respective candidates.
Okay, if I heard that clearly, it's you narrow the pool by the way that you described it, which is, is there a nomination? Is there a second? And you go through the list and you see how many are, are still in the running. And then at that point, you would go to the process that was suggested in the agenda, which would be a council member will nominate one of those that are still in the running. And then if there's a second for that nomination, then you're going to vote. And if that candidate gets 4, that candidate is the
Yeah.
chosen.
Yes.
Now the question would be whether that's the consensus of council.
Mr. Mayor.
Oh, hold on. Joe had one.
Okay.
Go ahead, Joe.
I think we should follow the agenda report. In regards to city charter Article 12, I think we're complicating this whole matter. There's no doubt about it. There's excellent candidates, but we should make the decision. We're here as a council. And we should be making that decision. And this is what is on the agenda report. And if we can't make a decision, the agenda report says the mayor makes the decision.
Your Honor.
Thank you. And I agree with that. I'm not relinquishing that ability to break a tie. So, yes.
Thank goodness. Should we take the 7 remaining names, put them in a hat and at least mix them up so that it's not, I mean, otherwise, you know, I just think it makes it fair to the last person and the first person. But, you know, that's just me.
Okay. I think Chaps has kind of got at least something where we're going to go back to our original process once we just do an initial kind of a vetting. So I kind of think we should go that direction and just then follow it from there. But I'm not interested in a weighted vote or anything of that nature. No way.
So I'm so far what I've heard is that you're in favor of what Councilmember Chaps had already suggested. So that's 2 of you. Joe wants to do what's in the agenda. We've got the hat person over there. And then I guess we want to hear from the
Councilmember Johnson.
Yeah, what I was going to propose is I really like the idea of seeing who of the ones that are here have a nomination and a second first. That narrows it down, lets us know where we're going. But it seems to me the next logical step, rather than whoever gets there first, we vote on and have to vote no for somebody who we might think is qualified, but we have somebody else in mind. Maybe the next best thing is to say for each person to state the person that they would vote for, then we'll know how many people there are in each direction. And then we can make official nomination. It just seems like otherwise everyone's going to be racing to nominate their person first, which then we get into this whole complicated thing later of, well, I'd like to make a friendly amendment for this. Well, no, so to avoid that, the easier thing might be once we have the ones that have a first and a second, then at least with who's left, if we state who we each think is the top candidate and go from there. Is that a process we could use?
Well, I'm not sure I understood it, but I'll leave it up to you. If you all understood what that was being suggested, I'd understood the process to be this way, is that you're going to go through all the names, see if they get a nomination and a second. If they do, they're in the finals. And then you would go to the process that's in the agenda, which is there would be a nomination made by a council member. And if that person gets a second, then you vote on that person. So that's what I understood to be on the table. I don't understand what you said in terms of how it would be different than that.
The way it would be different is rather than somebody makes a nomination and a second and everyone has to vote on that one and see if we get enough to move on, to instead of that, after we have it narrowed down, to go across council and ask who is the top candidate for each of us. So we know we may already agree, but if somebody else, I'm just thinking it eliminates some problems of friendly amendments and things later by finding out what number each person has, and that could solve some of the problems.
But you can't amend these nominations. It's nomination second and a vote. You can't amend that.
But we could still do a nomination then to make that one official. I was talking about a way to figure out where we stand, but
Okay. City Attorney's got comments.
Yeah, I think I now understand what Councilmember McDonald is saying. So you narrow the field, let's just say it's 3, but that's just hypothetical. We don't know how many it will be. And then once you've narrowed the field, you would poll the council and say, all right, of those 3, who is your preferred candidate? And if you could do that. I mean, there's nothing that's not legal about that.
Okay.
It's a matter of whether that's how you want to proceed, or whether you want to include, let's say, the McDonald, I don't say amendment, but addition to the process, or instead use the Chaps method without the McDonald addition.
Okay, yeah, I think we're okay with the
Last
McDonald
question for
addition.
Process.
Okay.
Say Councilmember McDonald nominates somebody and that person gets a second, then it goes to Councilmember Emilio and he nominates somebody. Can she then second, or she's now voted and she's done?
Well, I think the answer to that would be each council member is going to get an opportunity as we go through the list. You go with number one. Is there a nomination for number one?
Right.
One of you is going to either say either one of you says yes or nobody says yes, in which case that person doesn't move on. And then you follow that process until you are down to the three. And then once you're down to the three, as I understand this, you go back to the process that's in the agenda, which would be a council member. It's, I mean, there is, somebody's got to go first, I think. And that person nominates candidate X. And then if that person gets a second, then you vote on it. And if you get 4 votes, you're done.
She wanted us to just call out our candidate.
Okay. Is that something the rest of the council wants to do?
I'm fine with that.
Okay. Well, then that would be, would be done.
Okay. You okay with that? All right, let's go ahead and proceed with number one. And are you going to run that, or do you want me to do it?
Hold on one second. Okay, I'm going to try and state this process then. What's going to happen is the mayor is going to ask if there's anybody that's going to nominate Anna Bornstein as to fill the vacancy. If if a council member says, yes, I will nominate Ms. Bornstein, then the mayor will ask, is there a second? And if there is a second, then Anna Bornstein is in running in the finals, however we want to say it. If there's either not a nomination or not a second, then she would not be moving on. And then that would be a process that we would go through with all of the candidates. Trying to remember all the rules here. And then once you've narrowed the field to those, let's say 3, I'm just using that as a hypothetical number, then with the McDonald amendment, there would be each council member could say, my preferred candidate is, and they would say the name. And if 4 council members say the same name, then we're done.
Yes.
If we don't get 4, then I guess we're going to go back to the process that's in the agenda, which would be nominate a candidate, that person gets the second, and then the entire council votes.
I was planning that after we take our preferred, if it's deadlocked, I was going to make the appointment at that point.
Well, that's a choice, or you could have the agenda process after you've narrowed the field.
Well, I feel like we changed the agenda process to the point where we're all going to pick our preferred candidate.
I think what you've done is inject an additional step into the process, that being the Paduri step and the McDonald step.
Okay.
Into the process. And then since this process of the nomination and the vote is in the agenda, I think my advice would be that we
go back to
it after we've done the narrowing and after we've done the expression of preference. And if there's not 4 for one candidate, then we go to the process that's in the agenda.
Okay. Is everyone okay with that at this point? Okay.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think the advantage of that process is if it's 3 and maybe that we narrow it down to 2 and people who were for the one that doesn't get chosen, maybe that had fewer votes, maybe that means that we would then, whoever voted for that person might change it. So that I think the importance of an incremental step is helpful. So,
I had a question.
so going on to, as
You get that, what I just described? Okay.
Okay. I think we're good.
I'm
on
not
that.
sure what you just said, but
Yeah, I'm not
I know what I said. So
Yeah. I know what
think
you
that's
said, Brian.
we've got.
Yes, Paul.
Question of clarification, actually, on Councilmember Rao's initial question of if someone seconds a nomination, can they still nominate someone else? I think was the essence of the question, right?
I don't think you should.
Yeah. We're going to go through Each of the council members is going to have an opportunity to nominate, and they may not nominate a different one,
Mhm.
but the answer is yes. I guess that's the short answer.
Okay. All right, let's proceed with number one.
Okay. Before we get started, my comment was going to be that I appreciate all the people that have came up to the microphone and spoke. We have a tremendous amount of people that have a lot of experience, and it's always a tough decision. But we're elected officials here, and we have to make a decision. That's the key. And if you're not nominated, and let's just say Amelia was not nominated, okay? I'm using that as an example. That means there's going to be another election, well, depending upon the district, will be in district elections to be considered running for that seat if you live in the right district. We'll be in districts by that time. But again, thank you for all the people that came on board. You're all qualified. I believe that.
Okay, let's proceed with number one, please.
You want to have the city clerk?
Alphabetical
We
order.
kind of circumvented the whole discussion of the candidates. Were we going to do that first or were we going to nominate people first? That was my question.
That can be folded in. I mean, we got to start getting through the list here.
So my recommendation is we have the city clerk call out the name, and then you can and see whether or not anyone nominates that person, and then if there's a second,
Can I handle that process?
or you can do that.
Let me handle that process.
Either one.
Okay, we're gonna go number one, and so Anna Bornstein, candidate number one on this list in alphabetical order. Anna Bornstein, do I have a nomination for Anna Bornstein?
I nominate Anna Bornstein.
Do I have a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second for Anna Bornstein. Now we're moving on to number two. Ross Davison, do we have a nomination for Mr. Davison? Do we have a second? Okay, we'll go on to number three.
No.
We're going to number three, Marvin Dubuis. Do I have a nomination? Hearing none, we'll move on to number four, Cynthia Garfield. Do I have a nomination? Okay, so Cynthia Garfield is in. Going on to number five, do I have a nomination for Michael Gibbs? Seeing none, we'll move on to number seven. Do I have a nomination for Eugene Lowe? Seeing none, we'll move on to number eight. Do I have a nomination for Don Murphy?
I'll nominate Don Murphy.
I'll second.
Okay. And Mr. City Attorney, have we recorded that?
Well, I count four, I think. Yeah, you've got the candidates listed by, I'll just go by number, it's easier. Be number one, number two, number four, and number eight.
Okay. So I have Anna Bornstein, Ross Davison, Cynthia Garfield, and Donald Murphy. And at this time, we will now state by roll call our preferred candidate.
Yes. That's
Okay.
what I understood to be the McDonald.
Yes, Madam Clerk, can you take a roll call on that?
Yes. Candidate number one, Mayor Smith.
Well, no, I think
No.
that's not, you just asked the question, who is your preferred candidate?
Each council member.
Oh, okay, sorry about that. Preferred candidate, Mayor Smith.
Oh, typically the mayor votes.
Typically,
by
I
ask,
vote.
so
Typically, I go
Start,
last,
start
I'll
with
say
other
it.
council
Okay.
members.
Councilmember Rao,
Anna Bornstein.
Councilmember Baduri.
Cynthia Garfield.
I'm sorry.
Cynthia Garfield.
Thank you. Councilmember McDonald. Don Murphy. Councilmember Walking Stick.
Donald Murphy.
Mayor Pro Tem Emilio. Mayor Smith.
Cynthia Garfield, but I already had that. So I've got Anna with 1, got Cynthia with 3, Donald with 2. So now I'll take nominations from the floor.
Since none of them received 4, now, yes, if we're going to now go to the process that's in the agenda, you would take a nomination from a council member. And then if there's a second, then you'll vote. If that one gets 4 votes, then that's your choice.
Okay. Count Mayor Pro Tem Amelia.
So we just skipped the process of discussion of candidates. I thought that was one of the.
Okay, you'd like to discuss the candidates?
Your discussion is what you choose it to be. And if you want to discuss the candidates, you can certainly do that.
That's right.
Well, I thought that in order for us to choose the person who will be on the dais, we would have a discussion of the candidates versus just listening and voting. Is that not what other people intended to do?
I mean, we're still in the middle of the process, so you can still discuss whatever you want right now. It's just all one thing, discussion and action.
I mean, to me, the best way for a body to make a decision is for us to talk to each other, explain why we're thinking the way we are, see what the best thing for the city is, and just doing a listen and vote to me doesn't achieve that goal.
Well, I
So-
don't agree that that's what's happening. We've all stated our preferences based on what we think. We've listened to a couple hours of testimony from the public and from the candidates, and we've stated our preferences. I think we're all analyzing in our own minds, at least, who we feel is best for the city. I don't think we're just sitting up here picking out names.
But to address the question of Councilmember McDonald, if you wish to speak to any of the particular candidates, you have that right to do that. And any of the other council members, if they wish to do that as well, they have that opportunity. This is your choice as to what you want to discuss and how you approach the discussion.
I mean, maybe it makes sense right now. If you'd like to comment on why you chose Donald Murphy,
Yeah.
then you can go. Why don't you do that at this time?
Yeah, I think that's important. So in listening to everyone and gosh, what Mayor Pro Tem Emilio said, and what Councilmember Rouse said, we really have so many qualified people. I feel like we're kind of at a juncture in the city right now where we really, we're waiting to fill our community development department positions. We're learning a lot of new things, and we have a unique opportunity for Mr. Murphy, who brings in all of his experience on the Planning Commission, his volunteer work throughout the community. He has so much experience with the community members, as well as having a really strong institutional knowledge. And I just feel like the city would really benefit from having his knowledge on board. He's termed out of the Planning Commission, so unfortunately we already lose his expertise there, but we have the unique opportunity to utilize his knowledge and his skills here, helping us on the dais with the important challenges we're going to face. I feel like he did a really excellent job of discussing the issues that we have with housing, with the homeless situation. I appreciated that he brought that up because these are all issues we're going to have to face. And the other thing I think we can't ignore, that we as a body are representatives of the community, and the community very much favored Don Murphy as the candidate to be selected for council. And so since we didn't use the process of selecting the next highest vote getter and we've gone to this, I don't think this is the time that we stop listening to the public and make our own decision, because we are a body that represents the public. So I think it's important for us to keep that in mind in our selection, especially in light of the fact that he brings so much knowledge, ability to cooperate and work together that could really benefit us all and guide us as we go. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to comment on their preferred candidate?
I'll go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
And I just wanted to recognize everybody that participated in this democratic process. I like a lot of folks mentioned, I echo the same like comments here. It is first of all tough. This is a public forum for interviews. It's always done privately. This is a public forum. People are going to comment. So I really appreciate that you're stepping up. Really, that is the number one thing before everything else is stepping up. And I'm really glad that Pacific Grove has such a enormous dearth of enormous talent here within Pacific Grove itself. So I'm looking forward to these district elections where I'm hoping that I will see familiar faces here that have stepped up today to see what they can do in the future. With that being said, my real reason for taking in Ms. Garfield was this is not a full-term position. This is a two-year commitment, and we want somebody who's going to be there running on point as soon as we start. And I believe Ms. Garfield represents that experience that we're looking for within this council that can help guide us towards the objectives that this council together is gearing towards for the next 2 years. But really appreciate again everybody joining in, and really the top four was the top four. I mean, it's truly is was a decision point for me too. But I appreciate everybody and for the understanding on where the council is going today. Thank you.
Tina's.
You know, we have listened to an awful lot of community input, and we're going to have some challenges in the next 10, 20 years. And not to be morbid, but I may not be here, but we need, I think, the people that are going to live with the impact of our decisions. And I think Anna Bornstein and Ross Davison would both serve that well. But if I am in the minority, then I hope you run. I hope you win to both of you, because I think you're both outstanding candidates. I was super impressed. It's really hard. You don't know, it is a clunky process. You haven't gone through the 2.5 months of a rough and tumble campaign. The decision isn't easy, but again, thank you for your contributions, and I hope you do consider moving forward with public service. And I thank you very much.
Paul, Councilman Walking Stick.
I would like to very much echo the sentiments of the rest of the city council members that the wealth of talent that came forth is incredible, and it has made this decision monumentally difficult. And I do want to see each of you run in the next election because I believe you will win. And it would be an honor to just to vote for you and to serve with you. So please stay in public service. And if you're not selected tonight, please keep with it. You're worth it. The community needs you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, thank you. Oops. I'm on. I agree with Walking Stick. In regards to, I've already mentioned about the candidates. I really think really about. It's hard. This is the first time we've ever done this. I've been in DICE for 6 years. Feels like longer than that, but I've been on 6 years, and everybody is just fantastic. And stay involved in the community. Because you're not nominated, don't feel bad about it. This is a great process you've been through. And I could tell you this much, with 2 terms, it takes a lot of campaigning. There's no doubt about it. And money also is involved. But either way, I'm still with someone that can step in and get moving. And that's Cynthia Garfield. I worked with her for 2 years. My first year was I was a rookie, and I sat next to her. She was mentor. She knows her stuff. I truly believe Cynthia Garfield is the candidate for this office, for that seat over there.
Thank you. And I will. I better throw my 2 cents in here. I think that Cynthia is the right choice. She's prepared. I was really impressed with her comments tonight. And she's ready for the issues, ready to tackle the issues. So served on the FORA board, which was a challenging thing in the past that we know, some of us know about a little more about than others. And also I would just want to say I was extremely impressed with the other three candidates that have been made it to the last round here. Miss Bornstein, a truly impressive performance tonight. Mr. Davison as well, and Mr. Murphy. So I just want to thank all of you. I don't want to be a broken record, but I do want to thank everyone for coming out. And at this time now, I will entertain a nomination motion.
Nominate Don Murphy.
Do I have a second for that? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and vote on. Okay, I'll take a roll call vote on the nomination of Don Murphy for City Council.
Yeah. We have a nomination by Councilmember Walking Stick and seconded by Councilmember McDonald for Don Murphy. Councilmember Walking Stick,
Yes.
Councilmember McDonald,
Aye.
Councilmembers Rao,
No.
Baduri,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith. I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem Emilio,
No.
Mayor Smith.
No.
Motion fails.
Do I have another nomination at this time?
I would like to make a nomination of Cynthia Garfield.
I'll second. Beat you.
Okay, we have a motion to nominate Cynthia Garfield to be appointed to the City Council, made by Mayor Pro Tem Emilio and seconded by Councilmember Rao. Go ahead and take a roll call vote, please, Madam Clerk.
Mayor Pro Tem Emilio,
Aye.
Councilmember Rao,
Aye.
Councilmembers Walking Stick,
Aye.
Baduri.
Aye.
McDonald,
Aye.
Mayor Smith.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0.
So,
Okay, so they'll need.
You'll get to set it up.
Yeah, we'll need to have the city clerk administer the oath.
Yes. Celebrate after the vote.
I think we'll,
Some degree.
thank you. Back to you. Right, we have the opportunity to swear or affirm.
I'll
so if
affirm.
Thank you. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, and state your name, please.
I, Cynthia Garfield,
Do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
That I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California.
and the Constitution of the State of California.
And I take this obligation freely
And I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion.
or purpose of evasion,
And that I will well and faithfully discharge
and that I will well and faithfully
the
discharge
duties upon which I am about to enter.
the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
Thank you. And welcome.
Thank you.
Did you want to give your new council member a chance to say something?
Let's have we sit down and have a word, and then we'll adjourn with as a 7-person council.
Well, she'll need to get to the mic if
I recognize you to make a brief statement and then we'll adjourn.
Closing remarks. Thank you. I truly appreciate everyone's willingness to stay up this late. It has been a difficult process, a grueling process, but I commend all of the council for their attention to doing it right and getting a good result. And I have to tell you, as I know we had difference of opinion, but I really thank you for the unanimous vote. It means a lot to me. Thank you.
Very much. And again, thank you everybody who applied and went through everything tonight and stayed with us this entire time. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.